Chapter 1513. A burst of applause came from the shore. That's 100 times better than the Blackstone Gang. Yes, yes, yes. I heard that they made a fortune while Kong Taechu was disrupting the world and intercepted disaster relief materials. I'd rather throw my crystals in the water than donate them to them. The Blackstone Gang is as black as ink. They're as smelly and hard as stones in a latrine pit. You can't even scold them. Many cultivators and mortals were complaining crazily. What exactly is the Blackstone Gang? Jiang Tian asked. Long Shengnan shook her head and said softly, I've never heard of it. Brother, you haven't even heard of the notorious Blackstone Gang? On the side, a chubby young master who was called Fatty Yin by the other young masters looked at Jiang Tian and took the initiative to speak. It turned out that Jiang Tian's possible attack on Penglai had caused a huge uproar. Many civilians were terrified. They heard that he was as powerful as an ancient demon. With one attack he could kill all living things within 100 miles. So they had to build shelters or wear defensive Dharma artifacts. The Blackstone Gang was a disaster relief organization formed by the major cities and sects in Penglai. The major sects jointly agreed that all disaster relief materials and donations must be handed over to the Blackstone Gang. Otherwise, they would be killed without mercy. However, the Blackstone Gang kept a large amount of materials or distributed them to the major cities and noble families. As for the civilians, they couldn't get the shelters and defensive Dharma artifacts they built at all. For a time, there were complaints and the people had no way to make a living. Jiang Tian chuckled and said indifferently, the Jade Lady sect is really something. Their plan is not small. Their actions have won the hearts of the people. Maybe they're just kind. Although Long Shengnan was evil, she wasn't as evil as Jiang Tian. At this moment, Bai Muxia smiled again and said, Everyone, we are facing a great enemy. Disaster relief is not a trivial matter. With just my strength alone, it is too weak to turn the tide and protect the people of the world. Cultivators above the Golden Core Heavenly Lord level, or important people of the sects and cities, please board the ship and discuss this matter together. Sigh, we won't have the chance. I want to cultivate. Fatty Yin showed a deep look of envy. Then he stomped his feet and beat his chest in regret. He had just donated at least 150 kilograms of crystals, but he was only from a wealthy family in the mortal world, and did not have any cultivation base. Therefore, he was not qualified to enter the flower boat and see the beauty up close. Forget it, big brother. You've visited all the major sects, but you didn't even pass a single test. You don't even have a bone structure. Don't hold on to such unrealistic fantasies. I did spend 300 kilograms of crystals. What a pity. Beside him was a beautiful girl in red. She should be this fatty's little sister. She bluntly ridiculed him, causing this fatty to want to cry but have no tears. What's so unfortunate about that? It was donated to the poor. Moreover, when the nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. If that great demon Kong Taechu personally comes, we will all be reduced to ashes. None of us will be able to escape. What was the use of keeping the crystals? To make a coffin? The fatty had a simple sense of justice as he said casually, Brother, you're also immortal? This fatty saw that Jiang Tian did not have any magical artifacts on him. He immediately gave him 3 protective magical artifacts and said, Looks like you haven't bought any magical artifacts yet. My name is Yin Juanza. Just call me Fatty Yin. Alright, I'll give you a few. Jiang Tian took them and cupped his hands in thanks. Fatty Yin held a wine jug and was drunk. He immediately poured out his grievances to Jiang Tian. You don't know. Once that demon Kong Taechu caused trouble, everything changed. Like me, I have thousands of acres of fertile land and countless houses. In the past, those girls were all willing to follow me. But now, only cultivators are the most popular. Even if they are in the chi refinement stage. Now they are all in high demand. He pointed at a cultivator at the 3rd level of the chi refinement stage not far away. He took a mouthful of hard liquor and said bitterly, That guy used to be my family's guard. In order to earn crystals, he obeyed my orders. Now that my fiancé is with him, he broke the engagement with me. Jiang Tian took a look and saw that there were at least 5 or 6 young and beautiful girls around the chi refinement cultivator. They were talking loudly. The girls beside them looked at him with admiration and nodded. Brother Yen is really miserable. Jiang Tian expressed his sympathy. That's right. Fatty Yen slapped his thigh and looked angry. In the past, it wasn't like this at all. We rich young masters of the secular world were so glorious. Beauties and socialites all rushed into our arms. Now they are all aiming for cultivators. If you're not a cultivator, the rich and beautiful girls won't bother with you. After all, crystals are useless in the face of a life and death threat. It's all Kong Teichu's fault. If he dares to come, I'll blow his eyes out. At this moment, the beautiful girl next to Fatty Yin wrinkled her nose and mocked. TSK. If Kong Teichu came, he could smash you into pieces with a sneeze. At this moment, many cultivators started to rise from the ground and board the ship. I'm Han Tianyang, the Zongzi of the Heavenly Wolf sect. Greetings, fairy. I'm willing to work together with you to save the people. One of them was a cultivator of the Great Circle of Foundation establishment. He looked to be about 20 years of age, but his features were wild and wild. He wore a coat made of animal hide, revealing a muscular bronze chest. His temperament was sinister, and his eyes shone with a savage light. He rose from the ground and flew toward the treasure ship. I'm Wu Fengcheng, an itinerant cultivator. I'm willing to help you, fairy. A golden core perfected cultivator with an ethereal aura and extraordinary temperament streaked across the sky from afar. He broke through the gentle clouds and entered the ship. I'm Ling Yuxiu, the palace lord of the mythical palace. I admire your elegance and came specially to meet you. A ship flew across the sky. It was shining brightly and rippled with dermic power. It slowly sailed over and floated above the ship. A tall and handsome man with an unusually handsome face appeared. With a flicker, he entered Bai Mushue's ship like a ghost. For a time, many important figures, numbering in the hundreds, boarded the ship. Let's go, brother. It's already a great fortune to be able to see Fairy Mushue. There's no chance of getting on the ship. I know many places that are safe, have good wine and beautiful women. Although we're prostitutes, we can still relieve our worries. Fatty Yin invited Jiang Tian enthusiastically. He planned to throw away a lot of money, like a carnival banishment at the end of the world. Jiang Tian wanted to shake his head and refuse. He came here to gather some information, not to wander around the brothels. Right at this moment, a round-faced maidservant walked out from Bai Mushue's flower boat and said softly, "Today, Fairy wants to discuss with all of you the matter of saving the poor people. She needs the support of all of you, but she also needs the help of all the righteous people in the mortal world. Now those who can donate 500 kilograms of crystals can enter the ship to discuss with Fairy Mushue." Pa. Fatty Yen, who was about to turn around and go to the brothel to pick up girls, immediately stopped and took out a few crystal bills. His fat hand held the bills and waved them in the air. He said loudly, "Fairy, fairy, here, donate 3,000 kilograms. The three of us will go." He raised his hand and pointed at Jiang Tian and his sister. Chapter 15-14. Good. Thank you for your generosity. The round-faced maid waved her hand, and the 3 crystal bills were taken away by her. Fatty Yan's sister felt her heart ache. 3,000 caddies of crystal stones was not a small amount. Her brother was crazy. He thought that the world was going to be chaotic, so he didn't want to live a good life. Instead, he spent money everywhere like a child of wealth. Let's go, brother. Fatty Yen pulled Jiang Tian and wanted to board Bai Mushue's ship on a small boat. Jiang Tian looked a little troubled. He bowed, cupped his fists, and chuckled. "Master, I'm really sorry. They are my retainers. They are inseparable." Fatty Yan's sister, the beautiful girl, couldn't help but glare fiercely at Jiang Tian when she heard what he said. She also revealed a look of disgust. This brat was just a mere mortal. It was already a great fortune for him to be able to meet Bai Mushue, a blessing that he had accumulated over 8 lifetimes. But he wanted to bring his own retainers. The point was that her brother had to pay for all of this. He didn't know when to stop. Fatty Yin was also stunned. He also felt the pinch to spend another 3,000 caddies of low-grade crystal stones. This was almost his family's annual income. But the next moment he nodded and said, "No problem. Anyway, when Kong Teichu comes, everything will be ruined. What's the use of crystal stones? There are 2 more. He took out 2 more crystal bills and waved them at the round-faced maid. He shook his head and said, "The saddest thing in this world is that when you die, you don't spend your money. The saddest thing in this world is that you are still alive but you don't have your money." Fatty Yan's sister rolled her eyes at her brother. Besides Fatty Yan, there were only 3 or 4 other rich young masters who were willing to donate crystal stones to get on the ship. Therefore, Fatty Yan, Jiang Tian, and the others were quite eye-catching. Wow! Fatty Yan, you are rich. Not only are you going up, but you are also bringing your friends. You are not afraid to spend all of your money just to see Fairy Wuxia. Fatty Yan, use the image imprint instrument to record Fairy Wuxia's singing and dancing. Brother, I am willing to buy it with 300 crystals. Me too. Fatty Yan acted as if he didn't hear his sister's ridicule. Under the envious gazes of the ordinary disciples, he swaggered and pulled Jiang Tian onto the ship. Sister, did you see that? Although Big Brother had spent a lot of crystals to board the ship, it was not necessarily a loss. I'll use the imprint artifact to record a video, and I'll be able to sell it for money. Fatty Yan's sister snorted softly and turned her head away from Fatty Yan and Jiang Tian. In her opinion, Jiang Tian was as laughable as a beggar. Not only did he reap without sowing, he was also insatiably greedy. At this time, Fatty Yan remembered to ask about the origin of Jiang Tian's name. Jiang Tian only said that he was a mortal who came here to seek refuge. Fatty Yan nodded and said in a low voice, "My sister's name is Yanli. She has a bad temper and is eccentric. She's a famous tigress in the city. She hasn't been able to get married, so don't pay attention to her. Let's play by ourselves." A moment later, they arrived on by Wuxia's pleasure boat. As soon as they boarded the boat, they immediately felt a refreshing feeling enveloping their whole body. A faint fragrance lingered in the air. Jiang Tian and the others certainly knew that this was a spirit-gathering array, and the flower pots were planted with spiritual plants and spiritual herbs. If they stayed on the boat for a long time, it would be very beneficial for cultivation. However, Fatty Yan took a deep breath with an intoxicated expression. He revealed a somewhat wretched expression and sighed. "Brother Jiang, do you believe it or not? This must be Fairy Wuxia's body fragrance. It's so fragrant." "Fatty Yan, you're just an ordinary person. How dare you profane a beauty like this?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding rich disciples immediately looked over with eyes full of hatred. The next moment, they suddenly chuckled. "If you really want to profane her, take me with you. Young masters, please be merciful. My clan's daughter has always been a virgin." The round-faced maidservant was in charge of welcoming them. When she saw this scene, she was not angry or displeased. She only reminded them with a faint smile. The Jade Lady sect was best at the Tao of dual cultivation, and it was a well-known fact that they established their sect. It was inevitable that some people would ridicule them because of this. There were 3 floors in this boat. The first floor was the largest, the second floor was half the size, and the third floor was the smallest. Moreover, the second and third floors were half open. From the first and second floors, one could see the third floor. The design was extremely exquisite. After entering, Jiang Tian immediately felt the strict hierarchy of this place. The first floor was occupied by Fairy Wuxia and the Golden Core perfected cultivators such as Han Tianyang, Ling Yuxiu, Wu Fengcheng, and the others. They each occupied a corner, and their auras were monstrous. They were enveloped by golden light, silver light, black light, and flames. Beside them were the sect masters and elders of Maple City. They were the focus of everyone's attention. The second floor was occupied by some small city lords, the heads of large families, and the like. Some were ordinary people who held high positions, and some were foundation establishment cultivators. The first floor was occupied by Jiang Tian and the others. Basically, they were rich young masters who obtained a place by donating crystals. Other than that, there were some people in charge of businesses and small and medium-sized families. There were also retainers and disciples of important people. Fatty Yan didn't dare to be presumptuous when he arrived here. He and Jiang Tian occupied a round table in the corner, and curiously scanned the surroundings. "Let me play another song for everyone." Wuxia sat on the third floor and spoke softly. Then she sang softly and played the zither. The sound of the zither flowed from her fingertips like spring water. 9 women stepped into the air and danced to the sound of the zither under the dome. They were like fairies who had descended from the heavens to the mortal world. Their movements were graceful and captivating. Fatty Yin was intoxicated by the music. He danced and secretly gave his sister an image imprint Dharma artifact to record the dance movements and music. However, he applauded and exclaimed that this trip was worth it. The women in cultivation had entered the mortal world. Their charm was unparalleled and could not be compared to the women in the mortal world. No matter how beautiful they were, they could not dance in the air like this. To him, they were like fairies in his dreams. Not only him, but even the cultivators such as Han Tianyang, Ling Yuxiu, Wu Fengcheng, and the others were moved. They looked at Bai Muxia, who was playing the zither, with admiration. The sound of the zither was pleasant, and the dance was graceful. The sound of nature cleansed everyone's mind. Bai Muxia softly recited, "Worrying too much will damage one's cultivation. Entering the mountain is afraid of other beauties. How can there be a perfect way in the world to live up to the great path in Qing?" A breeze blew, and her clothes fluttered. She looked like an otherworldly being who wanted to ride the wind. She was so beautiful that she could not be described. Her hair danced in the wind, and she was ethereal. Her beauty was unparalleled. Everyone was stunned. Passionate referred to the Tao of dual cultivation practiced by the Jade Lady sect. Entering the mountain naturally referred to leaving the mortal world and getting rid of the Jade Lady sect. Great Path referred to cultivation, and Qing was a form of respect for everyone present. She actually recited it like this. She said such words. Many people were tempted. Could it be that she wanted to leave the Jade Lady sect and the boundless secular world to live in seclusion? Fairy Muxia, I know your difficulties. I'm willing to live in seclusion with you. Immediately, a fanatical admirer, a foundation establishment cultivator, stood up and said excitedly, "Plop." Some golden core perfected cultivator did not like him and secretly attacked him with a divine power. The foundation establishment cultivator was hit until his chest was bleeding. He screamed and fell from the window into the fallen leaves river. Fairy Muxia, you're elegant and pure like the bright moon. You should leave the Jade Lady sect and the shackles of the mortal world. I'm willing to lend you a hand. Another person stood up. This person was smart and did not say anything about living in seclusion to avoid angering everyone. However, he still could not avoid the fate of being beaten, and was thrown into the water. Fairy Muxia, you're a fairy from the heavens. You should leave the mortal world. Ordinary people are not qualified to appreciate your beauty. This time, a golden core perfected cultivator stood up. He thought that he was strong enough to control the situation. He scanned the surroundings with a dignified gaze, as if saying, "Who dares to attack me?" The scene fell silent. Suddenly, dozens of golden core divine powers were released at the same time. This golden core perfected cultivator was also sent flying out of the building and fell into the water. This time, no one dared to express their love for Fairy Muxia. Even the golden core perfected cultivators did not dare to. After all, they were not nascent soul cultivators and did not have an overwhelming advantage. If other golden core perfected cultivators attacked together, who could withstand it? Fortunately, I didn't say anything flirtatious. Otherwise, my legs would have been broken. Fatty Yin wiped the cold sweat on his forehead with lingering fear. Breaking your legs is a light punishment. You should be stomped into meat paste. His sister Yenli complained at the side, and did not forget to secretly record the scene. At this moment, Han Tianyang, who was upstairs, suddenly looked at Jiang Tian and the others like 2 bolts of cold lightning. How dare you record with a branded Dharma artifact? Do you want to die? His gaze was cold and fierce. The power of a golden core perfected cultivator rolled down like an ocean. There was a cracking sound. The branded Dharma artifact exploded on the spot. Fatty Yen and his sister fell to the ground. Their bones cracked and they screamed desperately, almost dying on the spot. I didn't know that filming is not allowed here. Fairy, please forgive me. Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed and an invisible true essence shield opened, protecting the 2 of them. You're courting death. How dare you save your companion? Kneel down and surrender. Han Tianyang immediately sensed that Jiang Tian's true essence seemed to be blocking his casting. He could not help but stand up and shout coldly. You want me to kneel down and surrender? Haha. Jiang Tian's face darkened. He sneered and his eyes flashed with killing intent. Chapter 15:15. You can try. Long Shengnan stood up. Her gaze was cold and sharp. Just as she was about to start a massacre. Bai Muxia waved her sleeves and stopped Han Tianyang's aura. A smile appeared on her beautiful face as she tried to persuade Han Tianyang softly. Fellow Taoist Han, those who entered this ship are my distinguished guests. Please show some respect. Recording is but a trivial matter, and I don't care about it. With your status, why bother with them? I'll give the fairy some face today, and not punish you for offending her. Han Tianyang retracted his aura. The Yen siblings trembled as they crawled to their feet. Their hearts still had lingering fear, and their faces were ashen. Han Tianyang sat down again, but his face was still ferocious. He looked at Jiang Tian as if he was looking at an ant and snorted disdainfully. You're just a group of mortal ants. We cultivators are discussing how to save you. You dare to mess up the meeting and disturb the fairy's discussion. You deserve to die. Young master, this guy is so arrogant. I'll kill him. Long Xingnan's energy center roared as she communicated with Jiang Tian through divine sense. Her beautiful eyes were full of murderous intent. She used to be a holy maiden and a heavenly talent on the God of War list. She had never been so disrespected and humiliated. You don't have to be in a hurry to kill him. Jiang Tian smiled and said through divine sense. Let's get to the bottom of this meeting first. Bai Muxia bowed to Jiang Tian and said softly, Young master, please don't be angry. Fellow Taoist Han has such a bad temper and doesn't know my rules. He attacked you out of concern. Young master, you seem to have some cultivation. Why don't you come up and talk? I'm with my companions. There's no need for that. Jiang Tian waved his folding fan and declined politely. Then I'll listen to you. Bai Muxia nodded at Jiang Tian kindly and retracted her gaze. She didn't insist. Today, let's not talk about personal matters or trivial matters. Let's talk about the major events of the world. Bai Muxia retracted her gaze and glanced at Han Tianyang as she laughed softly. Her voice was clear and melodious, as though it came from the 9 heavens. Yes, such a frivolous person should be chased out. If it weren't for the fairy's presence, I would have torn them to pieces for fear of offending the beauty. Han Tianyang had a head of messy hair, a tall and sturdy figure, and a tyrannical and wild aura, like a primitive savage. He bared his teeth in a smile, revealing white teeth that were like those of a vicious wolf. And his murderous aura was very heavy. He was from the heavenly wolf sect, and the cultivation method he cultivated was extremely savage. Fairy Muxia, why don't you tell me what you think? Our Nephrite Palace will definitely give you our full support. Ling Yuxiu smiled gently and raised her glass in a toast. Her actions were elegant and appropriate. In this world, the Nephrite Palace was a major sect with dozens of golden core patriarchs overseeing it. In the eyes of the masses, it was an unshakable and lofty existence. As soon as he spoke, many of the women present revealed looks of adoration. It was obvious that Yuxiu was quite charming. Yan Li's eyes were intoxicated as she murmured. She aimed the crystal camera that was branded with the image artifact at him, and gave him countless close-ups. Although I'm an unaffiliated cultivator, I've admired you for a long time, and am willing to do my best. Fairy's art of grand writing deduces the affairs of the world without any mistakes. What you hear, see, and decide is the closest to the truth. Wu Fengqing spoke. Although his aura was ethereal, his eyes were arrogant and domineering, as though he was the strongest in the world. You've all heard that Kong Teichu dominated the solar system and invaded the Hylon world. Our Pinglai world is also in danger. But do you know why Kong Teichu invaded this world? Bai Muxia asked softly. Her beautiful eyes were charming, but there was no sense of seduction. She was like a person who had attained the Tao and was discussing with others. When Kong Teichu's name was mentioned, the entire 3 floors fell into silence. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone looked solemn. After all, Jiang Taichu could be said to be infamous. His valiant battle accomplishments, his monstrous domineering aura that swept through the various worlds, and his ruthless and merciless way of doing things caused all the geniuses to be speechless. Not to mention a third-level world like theirs, even a second-level world like Hylon World was extremely terrifying even in the ruins of immortality. His name made the hearts of the descendants tremble and extremely uneasy. Is there a need to ask? Kong Teichu is a devil. He has 3 heads and 6 arms, a green face and fangs, and loves to drink human blood and eat human flesh the most. And he loves to eat children the most. Fatty Yin said in a low voice. Don't listen to hearsay. Even if he likes to eat human flesh and drink human blood, and is a great devil, where did you hear the details of liking to eat children? Yinli retorted. Because children's meat is more tender. I went to the brothel to choose concubines, and I like younger ones. Fatty Yin was unperturbed as he spoke confidently. When Jiang Tian heard Bai Muxia mention him, his expression didn't change at all. He only sent a voice transmission to Long Xingnan. Whether this woman's art of writing is accurate or not, and whether she lives up to her reputation or not, we can find out today. Long Xingnan nodded and remained silent, quietly listening to the discussions of others. Kong Teichu is a devil born in a peripheral planet. Since ancient times, the barren mountains and turbulent rivers have been the most fond of cruel creatures. This is normal. I heard that he has already led his disciples to this world and has burned, killed, and plundered in Thousand Hills City, West Bamboo City, Yangtze Mountain, and other places. The most important thing now is not to find out why Kong Teichu invaded this world. As the saying goes, when tigers and wolves are in front of us, there is no need to talk about karma. Since he has invaded, just kill him. Han Tianyang said coldly. His eyes flickering like a ferocious beast, filled with boundless killing intent and overflowing with domineering aura. Indeed, Jiang Taichu's attack has caused turmoil in the Prunglai world. Many strong people have already fallen under his claws. We should work together to save the people and civilians. Secondly, we should brazenly draw our swords and fight against Jiang Taichu to protect our homeland. His words were immediately met with a wave of agreement. Many people agreed with him. A powerful enemy had attacked, and the Prunglai world was facing a world-ending disaster. No one had the right to stay out of it. There was no need to ask for any reason. They just had to fight with him and kill him. Since Fairy Muxia has asked such a question, you must have used the art of writing to deduce the answer. Please tell me, I'm willing to listen. Ling Yuxiu said softly. I used tens of thousands of books in the sex-wide knowledge tower to deduce a shocking answer. Bai Muxia waved her hand, and hundreds of jade scrolls flew out in the air, emitting a bright light. These lights rolled and gathered, forming words and pictures in the air. That was the process of her deduction. Kong Teichu, the ruins of deity and the various worlds, might have come from the solar system and wandered to the South Gate twin planets. The descendants of the ruins emperor aren't our ancestors, but the culprits who killed our ancestors. Kong Teichu didn't come to this world to plunder and invade, but to take back the territory that belonged to their ancient earth. After she said that, the entire place went silent. Many cultivators and mortals revealed looks of disbelief, and they were all moved by this. Some of them were deep in thought as they stared at the pictures and words in silence. How is that possible? Some cultivators were unwilling to accept it, and didn't believe it at all. He said with a smile, Fairy Muxia is proficient in divination. Ever since she created the art of writing, she has never made a mistake. But this time, there must be a mistake. I've always thought that the truth of the world, or even the 3,000 great Tao, is hidden in divination. If you want to ask about the future and look for a future, you have to lower your head and look back at the past. History doesn't repeat itself, but it is always similar. Bai Muxia wasn't in a hurry. She said softly, I started from the ancient books and used divination to calculate the probability. The probability of this answer is the highest. Of course, if there are new books and documents in the future, maybe I'll get a different answer. But at least for now, this is the only answer I've got. I don't believe it. Some cultivators mocked. The solar system is a star system at the edge. It's as small as a speck of dust and as dim as a candle. Earth, which was called Middle Saturn in ancient times, is said to have withered spirit qi and is desolate and lifeless. The people who lived on it were all ordinary people who were as weak as ants and cockroaches. Could it be that these people have the same ancestor as us? What a joke. How is that possible? Does she mean that our world came from the declining solar system? Not only did the cultivators not believe it, even Yin Juanzi and his sister didn't believe it. Their mouths were wide open and they couldn't believe it. Chapter 15-16. Has anyone ever thought about it? Why is it that a desolate planet like a backwater village could give birth to a warlord like Jiang Taichu, who can sweep across worlds? Facing everyone's doubts and rebuttals, Bai Wuxia didn't panic. She chuckled and said, "In fact, this is the cultivation heritage left behind by Planet East. It's comparable to the divine powers of the ruins of immortality. And this Kong Taichu is very likely to have continued and inherited these legacies. That's why he can remain undefeated and dominate all the worlds in Hailan. This woman is really something." When Jiang Tian heard this, he gently waved his folding fan and smiled. According to Long Xingnan's introduction, there were still some ancient records left in Hailan, Baiming, and Dragon Gate worlds. In this world, many records about the truth of the ancient times might have been destroyed by the ruins Emperor's palace. Bai Wuxia was indeed extraordinary and knowledgeable to deduce the truth of the ancient times with just a few words from the later generations. Of course, she was wrong about Jiang Tian obtaining the ancient legacies left behind on Earth. However, she was very close to the truth. At least she had deduced that Jiang Tian's cultivation heritage was more advanced than the ruins of immortality. Fairy Wuxia, what do you mean? You invited us to help the victims and fight against Kong Taichu. Why are you praising Kong Taichu? Some cultivators shouted in dissatisfaction. That's right. Fighting against Kong Taichu and helping the victims is the most important thing. There's no need to worry about Kong Taichu's background. The ancient times are too long ago. Let's just sweep them into the pile of old books. Many cultivators chimed in. This was different from what they already had. In the eyes of the sects and cultivators of Penglai, Kong Taichu was their mortal enemy. They were all gathering their forces to fight Kong Taichu to the death. How could she say that Kong Taichu was the righteous one? Fellow Wuxia, don't blame me for not reminding you. The words you've spoken are treasonous and heresy. If this news were to spread to the ruins of immortality, the deities and heavenly officials would descend to the lower realms to suppress them. Even though your Jade Maiden sect is powerful, I'm afraid you won't be able to last one exchange. At this time, Han Tianyang's face became cold and stern. He smiled strangely, as if he was harboring evil intentions. When everyone heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Their eyes flickered and they felt uneasy. These words were not false. If the matter was exposed, all the cultivators who participated in this gathering would be affected and implicated. At this time, Ling Yuxiu tried to smooth things over with a smile. Fellow Taoist Han, don't be too nervous. All of these are just fellow Taoist Wuxia's speculations and suspicions. I think that if Kong Taichu really comes to this world, she will also stand on our side and defend our home together. Yes. It was just one side's opinion, and a discussion. Fairy Wuxia is not sure either. She's just discussing it with us. Wu Fengcheng also felt that the atmosphere was not right. Ling Yuxiu, don't speak up for him. Han Tianyang did not budge an inch and said aggressively. In fact, Kong Taichu has already invaded our world and wreaked havoc in all directions, repeatedly stirring up a storm of blood. I don't see Bai Wuxia leading the disciples of the Jade Lady sect to surround and kill him. If the gods of the ruins of immortality descend and question this matter, I'm afraid she will not be forgiven. The entire place fell silent. Everyone was silent, and the atmosphere was a little awkward for a moment. Bai Wuxia smiled and lowered her head. She was silent for a long time, as if she had nothing to say. Fairy Wuxia, let's change the topic and talk about the disaster relief. Just as Ling Yuxia was about to smooth things over, Wu Fengcheng repeatedly winked at her to persuade her to change the topic. Han Tianyang smiled proudly, thinking that Bai Wuxia had nothing to say. Bai Wuxia raised her eyebrows. She smiled and said softly, I've deduced that Kong Taichu might not have come to this world before today. Those so-called vanguard troops are very likely someone in disguise to deliberately mislead the public and fish in troubled waters. Han Tianyang's body trembled slightly, and then he mocked. I think your deduction technique is just fishing for fame, a bunch of nonsense. Those are Kong Teichu's troops. You're still speaking for the devil at this time. I don't know what your intentions are. What intentions are I harboring? Haha. I suspect that at least the massacre in the Thousand Hills city was done by you and not Kong Teichu. Bai Muxia suddenly let out a string of bell-like laughter, and said coldly. Her face turned cold, and with a wave of her sleeves, jade slips lined up in the air, blooming with thousands of auspicious colors and rays of light. This multicolored light rapidly changed, and in the end, it formed many words and pictures. It was a deduction on the table. These deductions were voluminous, and there were no less than 10,000 words. The logic was clear, and the evidence was conclusive, pointing to the Sky Wolf sect and Han Tianyang. There were many words, but many cultivators present had powerful spirit consciousnesses, and could read thousands of words at a glance. When they scanned through, they could not help but be alarmed. Could Han Tianyang really be the mastermind, and everything was a disguise? Han Tianyang was stunned for a moment. The panic on his face gradually receded, and then he denied it. You're misleading the public with your lies. The deduction technique can't be proven. You didn't catch me on the spot. That's slander. The scene fell into a deadlock. Everyone had strange expressions and no one spoke. The entire place fell into a dead silence. Bai Muxia's actions were too abrupt. Since she did not catch him on the spot, she was suspected of slander. The deduction of the deduction technique was ultimately a guess. I've heard that Jiang Taichu's strength is incomparably powerful, and he once destroyed the Netharism utopia in the Northern Sea. If he were to personally come, I'm afraid that a single strike from him would be enough to turn Myriad Mound City into powder. Why did he enter the city and kill a few cultivators for the time it takes for 3 incense sticks to burn? At that moment, a leisurely voice came from downstairs. Everyone looked over, and saw that it was a black-haired young man in a black robe, who was among the few mortals who secretly took photos. That young man was Jiang Tian. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they heard that. Indeed, Kong Teichu was powerful. According to the rumors in the Tianhuang sect, he was infinitely close to the Soul Formation realm, and naturally had the ability to destroy a city. However, the battle that day was not like that, which made everyone suspicious. You're just a mortal and ant. How dare you speak on such an occasion? Han Tianyang's face gradually darkened and became menacing and domineering. You don't know what's good for you. I'll kill you. His eyes were full of disdain as he swallowed the cup of azure flame wine and sneered. Suddenly, he reached out his right hand and grabbed at Jiang Tian. Boom. His dantian rumbled and his golden core erupted, gathering essence chi like a vast ocean. A giant wolf claw condensed in the void like a peerless steel hook, tearing through the air and grabbing at Jiang Tian. He hit his cultivation level. He's actually a golden core. He's not a perfected foundation establishment cultivator. Many cultivators cried out in surprise. Han Tianyang had the bloodline of an evil wolf, and his ancestor was said to be a mountain wolf transformed from a nascent soul cultivator. He was a peerless beast cultivator, and had the ferocity of an evil wolf, but he was also cunning and cautious. Han Tianyang, what's the point of bullying a mortal? Bai Muxia let out a shout and suddenly acted. With a wave of her slender hand, numerous snow-white flower petals drifted down. They were sparkling and translucent, as though they were carved from beautiful jade. However, they suddenly accelerated, shooting towards the wolf claw as though they were chasing the stars and moon. There was a sizzling sound. Boom. The massive wolf claw that was like a millstone was instantly pierced through and cut apart. The shock waves of magic power and true essence were suppressed by the tower's array formation, limiting them to a radius of 5 meters. Otherwise, they would have been able to destroy a small mountain. Bai Muxia, why do you have to pick a fight with me? Han Tianyang staggered back, and stared at Bai Muxia with a cruel gaze. He was extremely angry. If you're unreasonable, you should admit it. Bai Muxia's strength was probably stronger than Han Tianyang's. She sat still and held a glass full of azure flame wine in her hand. So what if I did it? Killing one is a crime, killing 10,000 is a hero. For cultivators, when is killing and robbing a crime? Han Tianyang was furious. He stood up and his hair flew in the wind. His muscular body was tall and strong. He looked down at everyone and said proudly, "Also, the reason why I did it is to remind the Prunglai world of Kong Techu's ferocity. I only killed 100,000 people, but it can unite people and exchange for the safety of a world. Isn't that great?" Bai Muxia shook her head slightly and said with a smile, "Are the lives of mortals not lives? How can you be sure that what you know is the truth and that Kong Techu is our enemy? Everything about your Jade Maiden School is good, but it's contaminated with too much of the mortal world's smoke and fire, and is unbearably dirty. Mortals are not human in my eyes. They're just low-level life forms. I'll kill whoever I want to kill." Han Tianyang sneered and said sarcastically. Many of the rich young masters below the stage didn't dare to get angry when they heard this. They didn't even dare to say anything. They just lowered their heads and shivered. "You admit it?" Bai Muxia's face turned serious. "So what if I admit it? Bai Muxia, do you want to be my enemy?" Han Tianyang exuded an immense pressure. His gaze was as cold as a blade, looking as if he was going to dominate the world. Chapter 15-17. So what if I'm your enemy? Do you think you're a match for me? This place is narrow and cramped. Let's go out there and fight. The dome cracked open like a blossoming flower. A gust of cold wind blew in, revealing the starry sky. Bai Muxia's figure floated up like a fairy and stood 10 miles away. Her white robe was shrouded in the moonlight, reflecting rays of light. She had an elegant temperament and a graceful figure, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. At this moment, the crowd discovered that the ship had unknowingly left Maple City and arrived at the misty Fallen Leaf Lake, which had a radius of 50 kilometers. This place was desolate and remote, a good place to start a huge battle. It seemed that Bai Muxia had planned everything. "You talkative dog, none of you can leave. Wait a minute, after I kill Bai Muxia, I'll tear you to pieces." Han Tianyang glanced at Jiang Tian and sneered. Then he flew into the sky like a wolf pouncing on its prey. "Brother, let's go. It's all your fault. Why did you have to bring such a piece of trash here?" How dare he provoke Han Tianyang? Yanli was so scared that her face turned pale. She pulled her brother and wanted to leave. She hated Jiang Tian to the extreme. An ordinary person should be careful in this kind of situation. However, he didn't know how high the sky was and how thick the earth was. He interfered in the conversation between the top figures, offended and angered Han Tianyang, and brought about a fatal disaster. The other rich young masters and company chairmen who were sitting at the tables near Jiang Tian all retreated more than 10 meters away. They quickly drew a clear line between them and Jiang Tian and the others, afraid that they would be implicated. "Can you escape?" Han Tianyang is a golden core perfected lord, and can travel 50 kilometers with a single step. Even if you escape to the ends of the world, he'll be able to capture you no matter where you go. Fatty Yin sat there without moving. His face was sad and his eyes were full of despair. He was so scared that the fat on his body trembled, but he didn't blame Jiang Tian. Although he was just a playboy, he knew right from wrong. Previously, when he had secretly taken photos of them with his branding artifact, he had been pressured by Han Tianyang. Several of his companions, who had been quite good with him in the past, had all retreated and ignored him. It was Jiang Tian who had pleaded on his behalf. At this moment, how could he blame Jiang Tian? Hearing this, Yin Li's face was filled with sorrow. She slowly sat down on the chair, tears rolling down her cheeks. What's so scary about him? A mere golden core cultivator is not even worth mentioning. However, Jiang Tian acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled faintly and said, "Fatty Yen, let's just sit here and watch the show. A battle between golden core perfected lords is earth-shattering and exciting. It's rare to see that." "Brother, I admire your style of courting death." Fatty Yen smiled stiffly and gave him a thumbs up. At this moment, Yanli despised Jiang Tian to the extreme. She couldn't wait for Jiang Tian to die immediately, but it was too late to say anything now. She could only look up at the sky and hope that Bai Muxia could turn the tide and kill Han Tianyang. Only then would her wish come true. "I wonder who will win? I think Fairy Muxia will win. But let's go and watch. It's best if we don't fight. This might be a misunderstanding." Many cultivators discussed. In the end, the most powerful ones, Ling Yuxiu and Wu Fengcheng, stepped into the air and flew towards the battlefield. On the vast lake, under the starry sky, Han Tianyang and Bai Muxue had already gotten into a fighting stance. Bai Muxue, let me tell you clearly. All of my actions are authorized by the ruins of deity, and I have the help of divine masters and divine priests. Han Tianyang let out a wild roar, and was about to explode. A gigantic ferocious wolf with a height of 300 meters appeared behind him, as if it was indomitable. He and the wolf spoke at the same time. Their voices were like thunder, rolling up rolling waves. What you're doing is ruining the plan of the ruins of deity to kill Kong Teichu. If you bow down and admit your mistake now, you may still live. Otherwise, you'll definitely die. I'm not afraid. Tonight, I will capture you and announce it to the world so that they will hear it. Bai Muxue said softly. Her voice was still as gentle and pleasant as ever. Her devastatingly beautiful face was very calm, but her pair of clear and beautiful eyes were filled with determination and determination. At this time, Wu Fengcheng and Ling Yuxiu also rushed to the battlefield. The two of them stood beside Bai Muxue and released their Dharma forms to clearly express their attitude. Han Zongzi, stop and admit defeat. You're no match for Fairy Muxue. What you've done is cruel and evil. You've distorted the truth and confused the public. You should kill yourself to right the world. Go to hell. You bitch who doesn't know what's good for you. You two flatterers have to die too. Han Tianyang roared and started the battle. His Dharma forms were powerful and his attacks were fierce and violent. Today, I'll let you know the power of the Jade Lady sect. Bai Muxue's pretty face was stern. She met Han Tianyang's attacks with a pair of white hands. Her defense and attack were otherworldly, but her Dharma power exploded within a 10-meter radius of Han Tianyang. This kind of Dharma power that had been compressed and then exploded was very terrifying. For a moment, Han Tianyang was covered in blood and was forced to retreat. Fairy Muxue will definitely win this battle. The Jade Lady sect is still very powerful. When their female disciples marry into the major cultivation families and sects, they will return the cultivation methods of their husbands' families to the sections. In the long run, the Jade Lady sect is proficient in all cultivation methods and has the deepest foundation among the Hylon realms. Everyone thought that Bai Muxue would definitely win. Even the Yen siblings were relieved and happy. With Han Tianyang's death, the crisis they were facing would naturally disappear. Ling Yuxiu and Wu Fengcheng are on Han Tianyang's side. They will form a siege. Bai Muxue is in danger. Only Long Shengnan said softly. Don't talk nonsense. One of them is a powerful itinerant cultivator, and the other is the palace lord of the Holy Land of Cultivation. Their status is very high. If their disciples hear this, you will be torn to pieces. Yanli angrily glared at Long Shengnan, feeling extremely disgusted. Besides, Ling Yuxiu and Wu Fengcheng are both admirers of Bai Muxue. Everyone knows that. Why would they attack her? A crooked stick would have a crooked shadow. The master was unreliable, and the retainers and maidservants were also fools who did not know what was good for them. How did you know? Jiang Tian sipped his wine and waved his folding fan as he glanced at Long Shengnan. Just a little intuition. In addition, Long Shengnan could not be bothered with Yanli. She sent a voice transmission to Jiang Tian. Since Bai Muxue has the advantage, they only need to watch from the sidelines. There is no need for them to enter the battlefield. Besides, I just heard the cultivators chatting. Many cultivators were invited, but did not come. I'm afraid this was originally a siege against Bai Muxue. These people must have heard the news and stayed out of it. Jiang Tian nodded. Should I help later? Long Shengnan asked. Sure. Jiang Tian nodded. At this moment, the battlefield in the sky had entered a white-hot state. Injured, Han Tianyang was flustered and exasperated. His punches and kicks had the power to tear the earth and collapse mountains. Under his attacks, earth-shattering sonic booms erupted in the void again and again. The wind howled, and white waves surged on the surface of the lake. Bai Muxue used softness to overcome strength. Her movements were gentle as if they were not lethal at all. But every time, she easily resolved his attacks. She even used a secret technique to cause his attacks to backfire on herself. Bai Wuxia, I'm afraid of you, crazy woman, today. But within 10 days, I will use the power of the sect to kill you. Han Tianyang cursed loudly. Then he turned into a ray of light and flew away, close to the surface of the water. Kanchi grand capture. Bai Wuxia sneered and took a step forward. She raised her jade-like hand, and waves of true essence gushed out. They gathered into a giant palm 10 miles away and grabbed down. Just as Han Tianyang was about to be hit, suddenly, 2 extremely soft and sharp sounds rang out behind Bai Wuxia. Oh no! Bai Wuxia was immediately alarmed. She reacted extremely quickly and rolled continuously, like a falling flower in the wind. In an instant, she was thrown hundreds of meters away. However, she was still injured. Half of her arm was stained with blood. The dermic powers kept circulating around the wound. It was so deep that her bones could be seen. Ling Yuxiu, Wu Fengcheng, the 2 of you. Bai Wuxia looked at the 2 of them in shock and anger. At this moment, Wu Fengcheng's face was gloomy. He laughed sinisterly and said coldly, "Your intelligence is amazing, and your skills are flawless. But this time, you only deduced that the murder case in Thousand Hills City was done by Han Tianyang. Didn't you deduce that the case in West Bamboo City was done by me? The case in Yangtze Mountain was done by the Langhuang Palace." Ling Yuxiu also walked over step by step and exposed him on the spot. "So, the 2 of you are jackals of the same tribe." Bai Wuxia showed a look of hatred. Her face was filled with sorrow as she laughed. "In the past, you were always talking about benevolence, righteousness, and morality. I didn't expect that in the end, you were just lackeys of the ruins of immortality. I was wrong about the 2 of you. Yes, we were originally on the same side. We followed the arrangements of the ruins Emperor's Palace, and used the name of Kong Techu to kill and pillage. Firstly, we could arouse public indignation. The entire Penglai world would work together to resist Kong Techu. Secondly, there were many cultivation clans and sects in those cities. They had quite a lot of cultivation resources." Han Tianyang swallowed a healing elixir, and his wounds gradually healed. He returned with a sinister look and a sinister smile. Chapter 15:18. There's another benefit. The destroyed sects and cities are all factions supported by the Heaven Baron sect. Wu Fengcheng continued. As for the Heaven Baron sects Sword Venerable Aotian and Zhang Qingyang, they have already submitted to Kong Techu. They are people that the ruins Emperor's Palace must kill. Therefore, now that the wings have been clipped, the next step is to destroy the Heaven Baron sect. All of you are despicable. Bai Wuxia was filled with hatred. Apart from that, there's another huge benefit. Ling Yuxia was suave and handsome, exuding an otherworldly aura. However, his words gave off a shameless vibe of a refined scum. He said leisurely, "The Blackstone Guild is built by the sects and cities of our world that support the ruins Emperor. They can receive a lot of aid. Killing people and robbing treasures with one hand and collecting crystals and donations with the other. It's simply too comfortable. Originally, we wanted to include the Jade Lady sect in this plan. However, after some thought, we ultimately rejected it. You're too stubborn." Wu Fengcheng took a step forward and laughed sinisterly. "However, we were also worried that your grand case art could deduce the truth. Therefore, you paid close attention to your movements. When you started the charity drive and invited all the cultivators in the world to board the ship, we suspected that you had already discovered part of the truth. You wanted to publicize it and destroy the plan to kill Kong Techu. Therefore, we came together today with the intention of killing you. We never expected that you would only investigate Han Tianyang, and not us. Today, you have opened the door to thieves and invited wolves into the house. There's too little time. Give me another day and I'll investigate everything." Bai Wuxia said regretfully. "So what if you investigate everything? You can't change your fate of being killed. Fellow Taoists, come out." Han Tianyang bellowed with a gloomy gaze. But see, crystal warships flashed with precious light, and let out loud rumbles as they came from all directions. There were dozens of them. Hundreds of disciples from the Heavenly Wolf sect and Gem Palace, as well as more than 10 golden core helpers that Wu Fengcheng brought, surrounded by Wuxia. Warships that were thousands of feet long and carved with the heads of ferocious beasts surrounded the flower boat, like a pack of hungry wolves surrounding a little lamb. The Dharma characteristics of dozens of golden core perfected lords were earth-shattering, and each of them was powerful. Are you all his henchmen? Bai Wuxia was stunned. Many of these golden core perfected lords were the sons-in-law of the Jade Lady sect. Their Dao partners were all disciples groomed by the Jade Lady sect. That's right. The Jade Lady school was too hateful. They were greedy beyond measure. Every year, when those girls returned to the province, they would take away a large amount of crystal stones and cultivation resources. Only by annihilating the Jade Maiden sect will we be able to eliminate all future troubles. Many golden core perfected lords sneered. So that's how it is. I've already told Master that I'm the only one who can control him. When Bai Wuxia heard that, her heart was filled with sorrow. In reality, she had also sensed the loophole in the rules of the Jade Maiden sect. If a sect wanted to be strong and invincible, they could only strengthen themselves and not rely on outsiders. After all, no one's cultivation resources were easy to obtain. If they were taken for a long period of time, no one would be able to withstand it. The Jade Maiden School would suffer a backlash. Today the long-suppressed conflict finally erupted. This is the warship sent by the Ruins Emperor's palace. It's equipped with a small god-destroying light cannon. Killing golden core cultivators is as easy as killing chickens. It can even kill nascent soul cultivators. Han Tianyang threatened. Bai Wuxia, if you resist to the end, the roots of the Jade Maiden sect will be destroyed. A few thousand disciples will be wiped out in an instant. If you surrender, we'll only disband the Jade Maiden sect. We won't kill your disciples. We'll just dismiss them. Despicable. Bai Wuxia was shocked and angry. Her beautiful eyes were filled with coldness. Her white teeth bit her lower lip so hard that it was almost bleeding. But in the end, it all turned into endless despair. She might not be afraid of the cultivators in front of her. She could even fight her way out. However, she could not save the Jade Maiden sect alone. She could not save thousands of her fellow disciples. Han Tianyang was not exaggerating. They would activate the large warship sent by the upper realm, and equipped with powerful light cannons to annihilate the Jade Maiden sect. They would be able to destroy the protective mountain array in an instant. Although the Jade Maiden sect was powerful, it was only a major sect and not a heavenly sect. It had yet to produce a nascent soul, and could not resist at all. At that thought, Bai Wuxia took a deep breath and said, "All right, I'll surrender. But I want an answer." "Ask away." Han Tianyang nodded. "You should know since you're close to the Ruins Emperor's palace. Is my deduction of the ancient truth and the origins of the ruins of immortality correct?" Bai Wuxia asked. "Is that important?" Ling Yuxiu sneered. "Even if we are indeed the descendants of the ancient planet Middle-earth, even if our ancestors were killed by the Ruins Emperor, who can resist the Ruins Emperor? A wise man submits to circumstances. This world already belongs to the Ruins Emperor. Stop dreaming. Shameless." Bai Wuxia spat. "Bind yourself. Wait for the judgment of the Ruins Emperor's palace's special envoy." Han Tianyang sneered and patted his storage bag. A shackle with golden light flew out and slowly flew towards Bai Wuxia. The shackle was made of precious metal from the ruins of immortality, and came from the Divine Craftsman Hall of the Ministry of Works. It was extremely heavy and had countless runes engraved on it. Once it was put on, even a nascent soul heavenly lord would find it difficult to break free. "Junior sisters, I'm the one who exposed the truth and brought disaster to all of you. Today I'll bear the shackle. As long as all of you can live, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. So what?" A gentle smile appeared on Bai Wuxia's face. It was so holy. She stood in the void and under the shackle. Her body emitted endless sacred light, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Eldest senior sister. At that moment, many disciples and maids of the Jade Maiden sect on the flower boat were in despair. They sobbed and cried as tears flowed down their faces. Most of them were at the foundation establishment level. Even if there were 2 or 3 golden core senior sisters, they could not change the situation. The other party was too powerful. Fairy Wuxia, although born in the mortal world, She's as kind as a goddess and wants to save the world. She held the torch for everyone, but in the end, she froze to death in the wind and snow. She opened the way for freedom, but in the end, she was trapped in thorns. At this moment, all the mortals clenched their fists. More people turned their heads away with tears in their eyes. They did not want to see her miserable state of being a prisoner. They sighed and sighed. The origin of the ruins of immortality that she said must be the truth, but the truth will never be revealed to the world. Some cultivators on the flower boat lowered their heads in shame. They had a good relationship with Wuxia and had also figured out the whole story, but they did not dare to help. Ha ha. The moment the shackle was about to land on Wuxia's delicate body, Han Tianyang looked up to the sky and laughed as if he had taken revenge. Yu Xiu sneered, and Wu Fengcheng was overjoyed. It was as if he had seen the many treasures rewarded by the messenger of the ruins of immortality. Sigh, a peerless beauty of a generation has finally withered like a flower and been crushed into dust. Fatty Yen lamented in his heart. His eyes were slightly red as he took a big gulp of wine. Drunk, he cursed, "This fucking world." Sigh, who can be blamed for this? Yenli wrinkled her nose and said disdainfully, "Can't she just be a peerless beauty? Why did she have to study some big case? Becoming an enemy of the upper realm of the ruins of immortality is courting death. Although you are used to darkness, you should not mock those who pursue light." Long Shengnan rolled her eyes and said coldly, "Have you forgotten that when Han Tianyang wanted to kill you, it was Wuxia who spoke up for you? You are so ungrateful. You can't even be considered a human. You are worse than a beast. What did you say? Bitch, how dare you scold me?" Yenli was flustered and exasperated. She pounced on Long Shengnan with bared fangs and brandished claws. Although she did not dare to provoke cultivators, in the mortal world, she was the daughter of a wealthy family. She had never taken anyone seriously. Her personality was extremely unruly and fierce, like a tigress. "Get lost." Long Shengnan waved her hand, and Yenli flew more than 10 meters away. She hit the wall and slowly slid down. "How dare you hit me?" Yenli was dizzy from the fall. She gritted her teeth, but in the next moment, she was so scared that she was dumbfounded. Her beautiful face turned pale, and cold sweat poured down like crazy. She saw. Long Shengnan stepped on the air and slowly rose into the sky. She turned into a shocking rainbow and flew toward the battlefield. She is actually a cultivator? What about him? Yenli did not dare to say a word. She stood there in fear, and looked at Jiang Tian. She did not dare to get close to him. She was in a daze and kept quiet. Chapter 15:19. Let her go. A feminine voice was heard. Han Tianyang saw a young female cultivator shoot over like an arrow and stand in front of Wuxia. When he saw Long Shengnan's smile, Han Tianyang could not help but reveal a greedy look. He grinned and said, "This girl is a peerless beauty. How dare a mere foundation establishment ant provoke me? Today I'm going to enjoy you and Wuxia together. One dragon and 2 phoenixes." Long Shengnan had also learned a divine power to suppress her cultivation level from Jiang Tian. She had yet to release her aura or reveal her cultivation level. Han Tianyang only thought of her as a foundation establishment cultivator, and did not think much of her. He thought that she was a piece of juicy meat that had been delivered to his mouth. There was no reason for him not to eat it. "Fellow Taoist, I'm very grateful for your help." Wuxia bowed and said anxiously and earnestly, "However, they have many enemies. But they have the advantage in numbers, and they have as many experts as there are clouds in the sky. You and I are definitely no match for them. My lowly life is not worth you risking your life for. If you insist on being stubborn, then we will both die together. Please leave quickly. You are the only one." Her eyes were slightly red as she bit her lower lip with her snow-white teeth and said with tears in her eyes, "You must spread the truth about Kong Techu and the ruins of immortality, so that the world can distinguish between friend and foe. Even if I die, I can rest in peace." "Don't worry. You won't die. Today there are important figures present. Even if the ruins Emperor's palace comes personally, he won't be able to hurt you at all." Long Shengnan consoled gently. "What important figures?" Wuxia was slightly taken aback. Long Shengnan did not answer and said softly, "I'm going to start a massacre. Protect yourself. Fight if you can. If you can't, retreat into the flower boat. Do you understand? I understand. I won't be a burden to you. Bai Wuxia nodded. 1 dragon and 2 phoenixes. Do you know how many dragons I've killed in my life? Long Shengnan looked at Han Tianyang as a cold glint flashed in her clear eyes. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Suddenly, she extended her right hand and unleashed a divine power. Dragon capturing hand. Boom. With a loud sound, Yuan Qi erupted and transformed into a huge millstone-like hand that grabbed at Han Tianyang, who was 1,000 feet away. What? Han Tianyang turned pale with fright. He seemed to have heard a rumbling sound coming from Long Xingnan's dantian. It seemed like her Jindan was trembling. Could it be that this bitch was hiding her cultivation level? Moon swallowing heavenly wolf. Break. In a moment of desperation, Han Tianyang did not dare to be careless. He unleashed all of his strength and ignited his golden core. The ash-green true essence surged out of his dantian and instantly formed the shadow of a vicious wolf. It opened its bloody mouth and howled towards the sky. It seemed as if it wanted to swallow the moon and swallow the stars. Then it charged towards the dragon capturing hand. But everything was useless. Although the 9 Dragons Emperor technique that Long Shengnan cultivated was incomplete and was not completely compatible with the laws of heaven and earth, it was still a technique that had been passed down since ancient times. It was very powerful. After all, she was only in the nascent soul realm and couldn't mobilize the laws. What they were competing in was the density and degree of condensation of their true essence. After following Jiang Tian for the past few days, she had deeply understood the true meaning of the laws and constantly perfected it. This cultivation technique had been upgraded to a real immortal cultivation technique. It was flawless, and when she used it, its power would increase by 10 times. Han Tianyang was only at the 1st or 2nd level of the Golden Core realm. His true essence wasn't dense enough, and he belonged to the Demon Cultivator clan. He was using his weakness to attack Long Xingnan's strength. How could he resist? Under the dragon capturing hand, his vicious wolf dharma form was like a piece of paper being crushed by a 1,000-kilogram boulder. It instantly exploded and didn't even last for a second. It turned into turbulent true essence and shot in all directions. In the next moment, the dragon capturing hand grabbed down like an eagle grabbing a chick, and it grabbed Han Tianyang's tall and robust body in its hand. No matter how Han Tianyang struggled and released boundless divine abilities, he was unable to break free at all. Fellow cultivator, please spare my life. Han Tianyang was terrified and begged for mercy loudly. It's too late. Long Shengnan did not say another word. With a burst of her power, Han Tianyang was crushed like a ripe tomato. His blood dyed the sky red. Even his Jindan spirit was crushed, but it did not break the dragon-catching hands. Evil woman, who are you? How dare you kill the Zongzi of the Sky Wolf sect? A white-haired mid-stage golden core old man stepped out. He was furious and his blood was boiling. His face was ferocious and he let out a howl like a wolf. The old man's hair was messy like grass. His face was old and his body was thin. His ribs were like blades under his animal skin clothes, but his eyes were fierce like a sick tiger and old wolf, full of savagery and bloodthirstiness. This person was one of the grand elders of the Heavenly Wolf sect. He was very powerful and had once swept through a large area of this world. He was very famous. Kill her. Avenge the Zongzi. Put her to death. Eat her meat in hot pot. No. Eat it raw. It tastes better raw. Grind her bones and scatter her ashes. Extract her divine soul and burn it in fire for 100 years. Let her taste endless pain. Many disciples of the Sky Wolf sect were furious when they saw this. They beat their chests and stomped their feet, roaring loudly with a murderous aura. They were an extremely brutal sect. They all had the bloodline of evil wolves and were arrogant by nature. They were cruel and bloodthirsty and would easily wipe out entire sections. With their violent strength and bloodshed, they dominated this world and no one dared to provoke them. How could they bear to see their Zongzi killed today? They wanted nothing more than to crush Long Shengnan to vent their anger. You don't deserve to know my name. Long Shengnan was contemptuous and sneered. Today, all of you will die here. No one can escape. Bitch, you are so arrogant. Ling Yuxiu, the palace lord of the Holy Light Palace, stepped forward and sneered. We have dozens of golden core cultivators here. We even have crystal warships and small god-destroying light cannons. Do you think you are a match for us? You are just an ant. Wu Fengqing sneered. Do you know that we are acting under the orders of the Ruins Emperor's palace? By challenging us, you are challenging the Supreme Ruins Emperor's palace. Haha, golden core cultivators? I don't know how many I have killed. Long Shengnan laughed loudly, almost to the point of tears. She was domineering and murderous, but there was also a hint of sadness. Suddenly, her smile faded and she was shrouded in frost. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a cold glint as murderous intent overflowed. You are the lackeys of the Ruins Emperor's palace. Do you think I am afraid of you? Today, even if the princes and grandsons of the Ruins Emperor's palace come, I will kill them all. Ever since she learned that the dragon sect had been destroyed and her father, Long Wuxia, killed, Long Shengnan was filled with hatred. She wanted nothing more than to step into the Ruins Emperor's palace and fight them to the death. However, Jiang Tian wanted to use battle to fuel battle and find resources to raise his cultivation. He wanted to finish the battle in one fell swoop, so he did not go up to the upper domain to fight. This made Long Shengnan extremely frustrated. Kill! Long Shengnan shouted softly. Her body flashed and like a dragon's arc, she flew towards Wu Fengqing. Before she arrived, she had already struck out with her palm. Tempest of the 9 Dragons. The palm contained 9 types of strength. The first layer of strength in her palm erupted like a furious dragon. Block it. Alarm bells rang in his head as Wu Fengqing roared. He crushed 5 or 6 protective Dharma artifacts and went all out. Streaks of colorful light barriers blossomed in unison. Some were like blooming lotuses, some were like golden shields, some were like dancing phoenixes, some were like white pythons coiling around a mountain. Layer after layer, they instantly formed a solid barrier around his body. They were in a stalemate with the first layer of Tempest of the 9 Dragons for an entire second. You think you have what it takes? Long Shengnan chuckled in a mocking manner. Her hair fluttered behind her like a flag as she moved her shoulders and hips. She pushed out with her palm again as Dharma energy flowed through her body. She gathered all the Dharma energy in her palm and unleashed the second layer of strength. Bang! All of Wu Fengqing's protective Dharma artifacts exploded in an instant. The barriers and light barriers shattered and dissipated. Wu Fengqing was sent flying for over 3,000 meters away. His head bumped into a warship, and the crystal wall behind his head cracked. The rolling Dharma energy coiled around his body like a dragon. It wriggled and triggered the third layer of strength of the Tempest of the 9 Dragons. The crystal wall of the warship began to shatter. The Dharma energy in Long Shengnan's body surged violently as the fourth layer of strength erupted. Half of Wu Fengqing's head was already embedded in the crystal wall. The fifth layer of strength of the Tempest of the 9 Dragons erupted. A dull vibration came from the hull as Wu Fengqing's entire head sank into the hull. The sixth layer of strength of the Tempest of the 9 Dragons erupted like the impact of 6 dragons. With a boom, Wu Fengqing's entire head and body shattered like a smashed fly. Blood, organs, broken bones, and minced flesh covered a large area of the hull. Boom. The mountain-like warship was pushed back several hundred meters by her. It shook violently, and the internal reactor gasped for air. Black smoke billowed out, as if it was crying out in pain. It was shocking to the extreme. She killed a golden core cultivator with one palm. Moreover, Wu Fengqing was a mid-stage golden core cultivator. As an itinerant cultivator, he had visited many experts in various sects and cultivated a variety of divine powers and arcane arts. Yet he was still no match for one palm. The 9 Dragons Emperor art is fierce and domineering with many changes. It's indeed extraordinary today. Ghost Wolf stood behind Jiang Tian and exclaimed, "She's also an immortal. Too powerful." As for Fatty Yen and his sister, they were dumbfounded. They felt dizzy and their hearts were about to jump out of their throats. She's very young. However, let her fight for a while longer. Firstly, she can vent her anger. Secondly, she can train herself. Jiang Tian yawned and said casually. Fatty Yen and his sister were even more dumbfounded after hearing that. They stared at Jiang Tian in disbelief. That evil woman is so powerful. Fellow Taoists, be careful. This time, even Ling Wuxia was shocked and instinctively took a few steps back. On the battlefield, many golden core perfected cultivators looked at each other and saw the fear and panic in each other's eyes. You're scared just like that? I haven't even used my full strength yet. Long Shengnan retracted her right hand slowly and clenched it into a fist behind her back. Her curvaceous figure stood straight like a sword and she was valiant. Her aura was extremely cold as she mocked. You guys are truly born in the year of the dog. At the end of the day, you're just lackeys and not dragons or tigers. How cowardly. Palatial Lord Ling, what should we do? A golden core perfected cultivator had a panicked expression and was unwilling to fight to the death with Long Shengnan. The other party was very strong. Even if they managed to kill her, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Who knew if they would die in her hands? Fellow Taoists, what else can we do? Do we have a choice? Ling Wuxia's gentleness had long disappeared and was replaced by endless malice. She gritted her teeth and said coldly, "It was by Mushue's order to capture Murong Mushue. Capturing by Mushue is an order from the ruins Emperor's palace. We have a military order, so we can't do it. Both of us have to die." Chapter 15:20. Let's attack together. I don't believe that we can't take care of her today if we join forces. The Grand Elder of Heavenly Wolf sect roared furiously. His Dharma idol exploded and turned into a three-eyed white wolf. Red light shot out from its three blood-red eyes, and it was extremely ferocious as it charged forward. Go! Ling Wuxia waved her slender right hand, and a folding fan flew out. With a wave it expanded and covered Long Shengnan. The folding fan opened in the air and the picture of mountains, rivers and moons on the surface of the fan shone with thousands of rays of light and turned solid. Instantly, mountains crashed and rivers flowed. There was even a crescent moon that cut towards Long Shengnan like a strange knife. The folding fan was also a quasi-true weapon. One of the founding masters of Holy Light Palace had spent 100 years of hard work to absorb the earth chi of mountains, water of rivers and the essence of moonlight into it, and condense it into a Dharma treasure. Kill! Countless foundation establishment cultivators and dozens of golden core perfected lords roared together. They either pierced through the air with their flying swords, released their Dharma idols or engaged in close combat, attacking Long Shengnan crazily. For a moment, Long Shengnan seemed to be in a desperate situation. Everyone on the boat was shocked when they saw that. In this world, golden core cultivators were the top existences. Even if those old fellows who lived in seclusion were included, there were only a few hundred of them. This time, dozens of them were mobilized and they attacked together without caring about their identities. In their eyes, it was a peerless killing situation and none of them could remain calm. An old cultivator kindly sent a voice transmission to Jiang Tian with his spirit consciousness. Fellow Taoist, your companion is in danger. He might not be able to handle dozens of golden core perfected lords. If you guys have the strength, let's attack together. Even Ghost Wolf was a little worried. Master, why don't I go and help her? I'm afraid she might be injured. It's fine. Jiang Tian sipped the jade flame wine and praised it in his heart. He smiled faintly. Only extreme killing can stimulate one's potential, refine one's cultivation and sharpen one's Tao heart. I've taught her many dharmic formulations, and I'm looking forward to her reaching the nascent soul realm after this battle. What training? She's clearly heartless and doesn't care about the life and death of her friends. This kid definitely doesn't have a cultivation base. Yanli shot a glance at Jiang Tian. Her heart was in her heart, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. After all, she still couldn't figure out Jiang Tian's background. Yes. Ghost Wolf bowed and nodded, then turned to look at the battlefield. Thank you all for sending me your dog heads. Esau. Long Shengnan shouted. The vital essence around her body surged and blew her hair back like a waterfall. It turned into a dragon-shaped curve and charged towards them, straight for the cultured scum Ling Wuxia. The Nine Dragons Monarch technique was the main divine ability. Once the divine ability was unleashed, 9 dragons would appear. It was as if 9 true dragons were surging, and it was extremely powerful. The 9 dragons had many transformations. They had all sorts of offensive spells and defensive spells. They controlled fire and water, evolved yin and yang, and their offensive power was extremely strong and ferocious. It could be fierce and domineering, but it could also be flexible. Regardless of whether it was attacking, defending, or refining, it could be done as he pleased. Moreover, these 9 dragons had been cultivated by him to the point where they were almost material. They were extremely condensed and powerful. Clang! She punched out, and a huge dragon that was 100 feet long rushed out, instantly piercing through a mountain peak that was manifested in Wuxia's folding fan. Essence chi gushed out in all directions, and then the runes on the mountain peak shattered. Immediately after, the mountain peak also exploded. With a wave of her hand, a green dragon that was good at absorbing water rushed out. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the Long River without leaving a single drop behind. Long Shengnan directly threw out a punch at the crescent moon that was flying toward her. She shattered the crescent moon, and turned it into surging moon essence that filled the air. In the blink of an eye, the magic power of Ling Wuxia's folding fan was completely destroyed. Ling Wuxia's face was pale as he retreated in panic. However, Long Shengnan was even faster. She had already rushed to 100 meters away and grabbed at him. It was the dragon-catching hand again. As Ling Wuxia screamed in panic, she grabbed him and held his throat in front of her. The attack stopped temporarily. Everyone was afraid that they would be implicated and hurt Ling Wuxia. Everyone trembled as they looked at this scene in shock. In just 3 flicks of the fingers, Ling Wuxia was captured alive. Fellow Taoist, I know my mistake. As long as you don't kill me, I'll be your most loyal servant in the future. Ling Wuxia was completely restrained by her vast and heavy quintessential essence. It was as though he was trapped in a metal plate, and could not move at all. He could not help but break out in cold sweat as he pleaded pitifully. Ha ha! Long Shengnan sneered without saying a word. Her slender hand reached out like a dragon's claw. Her fingers that were like steel hooks instantly pierced through his dantian, and pulled out his blood-stained golden core before crushing it. A golden core cultivator's physical body was powerful, and their vitality was vigorous. Even if they lost their golden core, they would not die immediately. Ling Wuxia could not help but be in so much pain that he wished he was dead. He glared at Long Shengnan in shock and anger as he shouted hysterically, "How can you be so cruel and heartless? You will definitely be punished by the heavens in the future. You will definitely die a horrible death. The ones who are cruel and heartless are the Ruin's Emperor and his lackeys." Smack! Long Shengnan sneered. With a slap of her hand, she slammed his head into his abdomen and threw it away like trash. Ah! Kill her! Avenge Palatial Lord! What a vicious woman! I'll tear you to pieces and grind your bones to dust. How dare you kill my husband? I'll fight you to the death. The disciples of Mythical Palace were all beautiful female cultivators. When they saw this, they cried out and charged forward like moths to a flame. The rules of Mythical Palace were just that strange. Female cultivators were the main force, but every palatial lord had to be a male cultivator. When a palatial lord was born, all his senior and junior brothers of the same generation would be expelled from the sect. As for these female disciples, they would become his Tao companions and enjoy the bliss of having multiple partners. Hundreds of years later, a new batch of male disciples would be recruited until a new palatial lord was born. The cycle repeated itself. There was a saying that Mythical Palace's palatial lord was overjoyed and wouldn't change even if offered the position of a mortal. It was widely spread in the world, and everyone was envious of him. As the palatial lord was the only male cultivator in the sect, the female disciples were madly in love with Ling Wuxia. Now that they saw their palatial lord being killed, their eyes turned red as blood flowed. Their bodies trembled, and they nearly fainted. They roared hysterically and charged at Long Shengnan. "You're just like ants." Long Shengnan's body was wrapped in the auspicious aura of the 9 dragons. She stepped on the light and charged through the female cultivators. The power of each of her attacks was unimaginable. They could split mountains and seas and reverse the universe. Most of the female cultivators of Mythical Palace were in the foundation establishment stage. 1 or 2 golden core stage cultivators were only in the early stage. How could they withstand her attacks? Under Long Shengnan's bombardment, They were like flowers of blood blooming in the air. Like patches of mournful red clouds, the falling corpses dyed the lake red. Long Xingnan's technique was majestic, and did not lose out to men. At the same time it was changeable. Her every move contained the power of heaven and earth. Her movements were bold and powerful. In the blink of an eye, she charged through the female cultivators of mythical palace. Her body was covered in blood and her expression was stern. Behind her was an empty night sky. All the female cultivators were dead. Not a single one was left alive. In the next moment, her figure swayed and she rode on clouds. She was like a flying dragon in the sky, heading straight for the heavenly wolf sect's grand sect master. The Nine Dragons Emperor technique is rooted in the Ao Emperor. He was a peerless dragon demon, and created this technique with the characteristics of the dragon race. Dragons can be big or small, invisible or visible. They can soar into the sky, swim in the deep sea, hide in the abyss and see in the fields. They can summon clouds and rain, burn the sky with fire, control wind and thunder, and summon dew. They have many divine powers. This technique is, of course, extraordinary. Tonight, it belongs to Long Xingnan and the Nine Dragons Emperor technique. Jiang Tian also revealed a look of praise as he leisurely spoke of a secret. That was the information he had obtained when he was discussing ancient history with the Golden Crow Ancient Emperor in the Tang Valley of the Ancient Demon Abyss. I see. Ghost Wolf nodded and sighed. I've seen the ancient techniques of the deity ground. They're not inferior to the techniques of the Ruins Emperor. As long as they're improved, they'll be compatible with the laws of this world. In the next moment, Jiang Tian suddenly looked into the distance. His deep eyes seemed to penetrate the endless clouds and forests. His expression changed slightly and he chuckled. TSK, TSK, TSK. This is fun. A few giants are here. Let's see if Long Xingnan can kill all these bastards before they arrive. Otherwise, I'll have to do it myself. Chapter 1521. At that moment, Long Xingnan had almost lost her mind as she fought against a few golden core powerhouses of Heavenly Wolf sect. Her spells and even her corporeal body divine arts could all be unleashed on him. The power of each strike was like moving mountains and overturning seas. She pointed with her finger, and a dragon's might that contained immense true essence pierced through the head of a golden core perfected lord, shattering his divine soul. His golden core was extinguished instantly, and could not be activated at all. His corpse fell into the water. Bang! She punched out and dragons suddenly appeared in the air. 9 dragons extended their claws and tore a dozen golden core perfected lords to pieces. With a sweep of her leg, it was like a dragon swinging its tail. Surging dragon-shaped quintessence swept through a large area. Over 100 Skywolf sect disciples exploded like strings of firecrackers, turning into a bloody mist that filled the air. That woman is so fierce. Countless cultivators screamed as their eyes were filled with fear. They did not dare to go forward and tried to put on a brave front. It was a cruel and bloody battle. Since the beginning of the battle, Long Xingnan had been pushing forward violently. Experts fell like rain and blood dyed the sky red. Countless corpses and broken limbs floated above Fallen Leaf Lake like dead fish. The smell of blood soared into the sky and was extremely pungent. They wanted to retreat. If they fought Long Xingnan again, they would die without a doubt. If they retreated, the Ruins Emperor's palace would pursue them. However, the terrain of Penglai was complicated with deep ravines and crisscrossing mountain ranges. If they found a place to hide their auras and went into seclusion, they might have a chance of survival. Heavenly Wolf sect, even if the sect is destroyed, we must kill that woman and avenge Zhongzi. The Grand Elder of Heavenly Wolf sect had also been severely injured in the previous battle. He was already covered in blood, and his bones were broken in several places. The white-furred three-eyed wolf Dharma idol was also on the verge of dissipating. However, his face was still as cold as steel. His cold eyes were filled with killing intent as his body surged with an unyielding fighting spirit. He was a ruthless person who had been famous for hundreds of years. He was once an invincible bandit who killed and pillaged everywhere. His hands were stained with blood and he had killed countless people. He was an ambitious person who climbed to a high position by stepping on the bones of his enemies. His heart was as hard as steel. Hold on. Get on the ship. I'll kill her. At this moment, A divine general in black iron armor walked out of the crystal warship and said softly, "Let's go." This is Long Xingnan, a disciple of the heaven-sex dragon gate of the Sea Wave world. She once cultivated in the 100 Moons Academy. How could you be a match for her? This divine general was tall and majestic. His armor was made of platinum and pure gold, and he held a tiger-headed saber in his hand. His aura was extraordinary, and his tiger eyes were awe-inspiring. Anyone who looked at him would feel a sense of fear. So he's Long Xingnan. Many cultivators were so scared that their faces turned pale. The heavenly wolf sex supreme elder's heart trembled. He thought to himself, no wonder this woman is so powerful. She is the nemesis of all demonic cultivators. He raised his right hand. After the disciples retreated to the crystal ships, he also jumped onto a ship and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Whoa. So she was Fairy Long Xingnan. No wonder he's so powerful. However, she should be following the Ruins Emperor closely. Why would she risk her life to protect by Wuxia who had slandered the Ruins Emperor? Cries of surprise could be heard on the boat. Many cultivators were shocked and could no longer remain calm. This world used to be the territory of the Dragon Gate. When Long Xingnan arrived, she was like a princess on an inspection tour. Even a top sect like the Heaven Baron sect had to bow their heads and welcome her, not daring to slight her. After all, they were Foundation Establishment and Golden Core cultivators who had yet to leave this world. They were not aware of the inside stories and great changes in other worlds. Their news was still from a long time ago. Heavens, I'm sitting with Fairy Xingnan. Fatty Yin was even more excited. The fat all over his body trembled. Don't say anything. That divine general seems to be even more powerful. After killing Long Xingnan, he might kill us too. Yanli was so scared that her face turned ashen as she trembled. One of the 9 divine generals of the White Tiger Guards, Fenghu, half-step soul formation realm. Ghost Wolf looked at the back of the divine general with a solemn expression. He did not expect him to come personally. He said in a low voice, Senior Grand Primordium, I'm afraid Long Xingnan is in danger. It's fine. Jiang Tian was calm. He waved his folding fan and said leisurely, this woman originally submitted to the Ruins Emperor and has a strong servile nature. Although her cultivation level is not bad, her potential has not been stimulated. Only extreme danger can stimulate her potential, producing an unyielding fighting spirit that can cleave through and destroy everything. Don't worry. It's just a small god crasher. Her cultivation is at the nascent soul stage, and her cultivation method is not bad. She should be able to withstand it. What if she can't? Ghost Wolf asked. I don't keep trash under me. If she can't withstand it, then she's trash and can die. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Ghost Wolf immediately broke out in cold sweat. He thought to himself that he had to raise his cultivation level and fight bravely in the future. Otherwise, he would be trash and Lu Xian would not care about his life. In the void, Long Xingnan looked at Fenghu calmly with a pair of heroic eyes. She raised her right arm and condensed her chi into a knife with her left hand. She cut off her sleeve and revealed her tender arm. She said coldly, Senior Fenghu, I respected you back in the ruins of immortality. I didn't want to meet you on the battlefield today, but you and I serve different masters. There's nothing we can do about it. Next, you and I will have to kill without mercy. She released her fingers and the sleeve fell into the air. Yes. That goes without saying. Kid, you betrayed the Ruins Emperor and colluded with the bandit Kong Teichu. You deserve to die. How can I let you off? Fenghu held his knife with one hand and stood with the other by his waist. His tone was light and lukewarm, but it contained a terrifying killing intent and strong confidence. Long Xingnan could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. She glanced at Bai Wuxia, whose clothes were tattered and hair disheveled from the shockwaves. She said softly, Since you want to fight me to your heart's content, Fairy Wuxia will only be a hindrance if she's here. Why don't you let her retreat to the flower boat first? I wonder if you'll allow it. Allow it? She won't be able to escape. Fenghu's face was calm. Bai Wuxia couldn't bear it, but she knew that she couldn't help at all in such a battle between experts. Instead, she would become a burden. She bowed and said, Fairy Xingnan, take care. Then, she flew into the flower boat like a bird. Only Long Shengnan was left on the battlefield, facing a half-step soul formation divine general of the White Tiger Guards alone. If it were before, Long Shengnan would have to bow 3 times and kowtow 9 times to him, not daring to offend him at all. But now she wasn't afraid at all. All she had was a monstrous killing intent and an unyielding fighting spirit. She stomped her foot gently and ripples appeared in the air, as if the space was shaking violently. Fight! Boom! Her dantian rumbled like thunder and her golden core in the form of a nascent soul burned crazily, emitting a bright light. 9 dragon-shaped true essence rushed out of her dantian and surrounded her body, completely turning into 9,000 feet long dragons. They were extremely solid and heavy, as if they were cast in gold, shining with a dazzling light. The 9 dragons roared to the sky and let out a deafening dragon roar, waving their claws and waving their tails, looking extraordinarily mighty. Little girl, you want to fight with me? You don't know what's good for you. Feng Hu grunted with disdain. He suddenly clenched his right hand into a fist and threw a punch in the air. That punch was thrown. With a bang, everything within 100 miles trembled. Monstrous waves rose up from the fallen leaf lake, and the surrounding mountains trembled and swayed. The void shattered, and the vast power of the laws surged out violently. The flower boat was immediately thrown high by the waves and then fell heavily, sinking into the water under the pressure of the Dharma laws. The runa rays carved on it flickered, sometimes shining brightly and sometimes dimming. In the end there were countless cracks. Even the crystal battleships behind Feng Hu were pushed back a few hundred meters by his violent Dharma power. Many of the Punglai cultivators present, whether they were in the flower boats or the disciples of the Sirius sect who had retreated to the rear of the battleship, felt a loud bang. It was as if a giant hammer had slammed into their chests. Their bodies flew backward, and they were so uncomfortable that they almost spat out blood. Some ordinary people like Fatty Yin fell to their knees on the spot, bleeding from their 7 orifices. This was under the premise that the flower boat's formation had been activated. Otherwise, the aftershock of his punch would have been enough to turn all the cultivators into dust. Just the impact of his punch is already so terrifying. If he punches directly, I'm afraid even a 10-mile mountain would be leveled to the ground. This isn't the power of a human. This is the power of a real entity. Countless people screamed in their minds. In fact, a half-soul formation cultivator was already on a different level compared to a nascent soul cultivator. 9 dragons pillar. Long Shengnan threw a punch and 9 dragons came out together, flying towards Feng Hu's Dharma Law fist. Trash. Creatures from the lower worlds are as lowly as ants. How dare you? Feng Hu slowly retracted his fist and put one hand behind his back. He didn't move at all, and only snickered. Then, the 9 dragons exploded where the Dharma Law fist passed. His Dharma Law fist was extremely powerful and struck Long Shengnan's body. Chapter 1522. Crack. Long Shengnan's entire body was filled with the sound of broken bones and tendons. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying a few miles away, crashing into a mountain peak. Wherever she passed, the white waves in the lake rose into the air, and the rocks on the mountain shot out. The mountain peak caved in, leaving an extremely deep pit. Long Shengnan disappeared without a trace. Humph! How can this little girl resist the power of Divine General Feng's punch? Her body and soul will definitely be destroyed. Next to him, the supreme suzerain of the Sky Wolf sect bowed, and said with a flattering expression, "Little girl, no matter how fierce and evil she is no match for the gods of the ruins of immortality. I'm afraid she will be blown up and disappear." In the distance, a group of disciples of the Sky Wolf sect who were prostrating on the ground rose from the ground and laughed wildly. Just as Feng Hu was smiling proudly, Bai Muxia was so sad that she was about to cry, and Fatty Yin and many other cultivators and mortals on the flower boat were sighing with regret. With a boom, rocks flew into the sky and smoke billowed. Kill! Long Shengnan suddenly jumped out of the mountain peak, like a whistling arrow. Like a flying dragon in the sky, she roared and charged toward Feng Hu again. Her entire body was covered in bloodstains, her clothes were ragged, and her hair was soaked with sweat and blood. She appeared dirty and battered, but her clear eyes seemed to flicker with lightning. Her battle intent was still not weak. Damn it, a cockroach that can't be killed. The suzerain of the Sky Wolf sect gritted his teeth, but his body was honest. He shrank back into the battleship to avoid being implicated. Dragon shakes the sky. Long Xingnan roared. Her dantian trembled crazily and burned her gold core. Suddenly, the sky shook, clouds rose, and wind and clouds gathered. 9 giant dragons appeared and disappeared in the clouds, giving people a feeling that they could not be caught. The 9 giant dragons flashed above Feng Hu's head in the blink of an eye. They opened their bloody mouths and clawed at Feng Hu, covering the sky and the earth. Thunder and lightning lingered and flames spewed out. The power was so great that it could tear the sky and destroy the giant peak. I didn't expect you to be able to resist my attack. However, I won't give you a second chance. Feng Hu was stunned at first and revealed a look of astonishment. The next moment, his face was filled with disdain and contempt as he slashed his saber into the air. Crack. This tiger head saber was a true weapon. It contained the power of the laws, and its power was terrifying beyond compare. Once the saber was unleashed, it instantly shattered the void and caused the firmament to tremble. Wherever the blade pointed, huge spatial cracks spread out like a huge spider web, covering a radius of 10 miles and completely enveloping the 9 huge dragons. Kacha kacha. Cracks appeared on the bodies of the 9 dragons, which were as tough as divine gold. They looked up to the sky and cried out, trying to repair themselves and resist. However, they only lasted for a second before they were torn apart. The cracks spread deep into the dragons' bodies. Finally, the 9 dragons exploded in the air, and mushroom clouds rose into the air. Long Xingnan suffered from the backlash of her mana. Her soul, mortal body, and golden core were all severely damaged. Her delicate body trembled violently like a withered flower in the wind. She staggered backward, and her aura plummeted. Even her golden core had cracks on it. This was the result of her true essence being consumed outside of her body, and not being retrieved back into her golden core. Tiger soul shattering roar. Feng Hu wanted to finish the job in one fell swoop. He raised his saber and gripped the hilt tightly with both hands. His eyes flickered with a cold glint and killing intent as he slashed out. Seeing this scene, Ghost Wolf was alarmed. His expression was extremely solemn as he sent a voice transmission with his consciousness. Master, this saber is very powerful. It turned out that this was a saber technique divine power passed down by the Ruins Emperor. It contained extremely complicated and powerful nomological powers. Not only could it destroy the mortal body and shatter the golden core, it could even strike out the soul. It was the most brutal and terrifying move. One had to know that before reaching the true nascent soul realm, the soul, golden core, flesh, and blood chi had yet to fuse. The soul was still relatively weak and needed the protection of the golden core and body. Once it was struck out of the body, it would be like a rootless duckweed, easily killed. And without the soul, even if the golden core and body were still present, it would be a true death and fall. Don't help her. Jiang Tian's eyes flickered. His face was as cold as steel, and he was abnormally calm. Crack. The saber beam was like a waterfall that descended like a river of stars. It viciously slashed at Long Xingnan's head. Clang. Everyone was shocked to see that. Long Xingnan's soul was struck out of her body. It looked exactly like her, but it was very faint, as if it was formed by moonlight. The next moment, her body exploded. Her golden core, which was already in the nascent soul state but had no spirit, was also struck out. Cracks appeared on it before it shattered. I can't accept this. I haven't killed the Ruins Emperor. Then, the saber beam stirred and stabbed. Amidst the unwilling roar of the soul, it was directly chopped into pieces and instantly disappeared in the air. This, Ghost Wolf gritted his teeth. Long Xingnan's body and soul had been destroyed. This was a complete death and fall. Fairy Xingnan. Bai Mushua's delicate body trembled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She was so sad that she could not control herself. She wanted nothing more than to follow her. Villains of the Ruins of Immortality. Fatty Yin was also gnashing his teeth in hatred. However, he could not change all of this. After all, he was a powerless mortal. Sigh, the cultivators of the Ruins of Immortality are like high and mighty gods. In the end, they can't be defeated. That's right. This is the outcome of challenging the Ruins Emperor, death. It's sad, lamentable, and respectable. At that moment, the sound of a flute could be heard. It was soul-stirring. It was Jiang Tian who was holding a verdant flute. His slender fingers would press down on it and lift it up from time to time, and he was unhurriedly playing a song that seemed to be extremely mystical. Your companion has just died. At this time, you still have the mood to play the flute. How cold-hearted. At that moment, many cultivators and mortals on the flower boat looked askance at Jiang Tian. Their hearts were filled with contempt and disdain. How is this possible? However, Ghost Wolf was suddenly stunned. He looked at the sky where Long Shengnan had disappeared and saw a shocking scene. He saw Long Shengnan's soul, which had disappeared, reappear out of thin air. First it was her face, then her body, limbs, and then waves of golden core essence, true essence, and blood chi that were constantly floating were pouring into her soul. What? Her soul is actually condensing again? Is she shattering her core to form a nascent soul? Feng Hu was in disbelief as though he had seen the most incredulous thing. Yes, he did not see wrongly. At that moment, Long Shengnan's soul, golden core essence, and body's blood chi were fusing and sublimating. She was shattering her core to form a nascent soul. Moments later, a nascent soul that was about an inch tall was formed. It was like a mini Long Shengnan, but it was many times stronger than the golden core from before. This tune is called Soulless Lure. It's been a long time since I used it. Thankfully, I'm not too unfamiliar with it. After the tune ended, Jiang Tian put down her flute and said languidly, Soulless Lure was a mystic art that specialized in gathering and absorbing the psyche of wandering souls. Before Jiang Tian had the ability to devour souls, he loved using such a mystic art to absorb the psyche of others for his own use. Back then, before his psyche and soul were fully developed, he had used this mystic art to devour many shikigami in the East Ocean. Now Jiang Tian's psyche was many times stronger than before. He had also refined the soul-guiding flute several times, so it was easy for him to use this mystic art again. Most importantly, Long Shengnan's soul had only just dissipated. Many remnant souls had not spread far. Although there were many remnant laws in the void, to Jiang Tian, those laws were nothing but trash. This is like bringing the dead back to life. Ghost Wolf was so shocked that he could not say a word. Many cultivators around were dumbfounded. Even Bai Muxia was dumbfounded. Body condensation. Long Shengnan's nascent soul cast a spell and waved her hand. The broken bones and organs floating in the air quickly reformed. A moment later, even the cracks disappeared as if they had been reborn. It was even to the extent that because she'd experienced tempering numerous times, her body had become even more condensed, extraordinarily tough, and flawless. The glow of treasures flickered, and her entire body was crystalline and translucent, as if it was made from divine glass and precious gold. It emitted an eternal and indestructible aura, and it was like the body of a golden core. Long Shengnan's nascent soul cast a spell, and a helmet, armor and boots flew out from her storage bag and wrapped around her body. The nascent soul jumped and entered Long Shengnan's body. Her closed eyes suddenly opened and lightning flashed in the air. At this moment, Long Shengnan's body, which was covered by the armor, was curvaceous and perfect. She was like a female warrior who had descended from the heavens. Her energy surged and she shouted, "Thank you, Senior Feng Hu, for helping me. Tonight, I've broken through the bottleneck and become a heavenly lord." Chapter 1523. Long Shengnan had been trying to form her nascent soul for a few years, but she couldn't break her core and form her nascent soul. In essence, she couldn't integrate her divine soul, golden core and body. Although the levels of the immortal cultivators differed in different civilizations and planets, they were generally divided into 8 levels. The refinement stage, the building foundation stage, the core formation stage and the nascent soul stage were the lower 4 levels, and the divinity transformation stage, the void return stage, the Tao integration stage and the tribulation stage were the upper 4 levels. As for the nascent soul realm, it was the peak of the 4 lower realms. Only after taking this step would one be able to dominate the immortal cultivators and be called a high-level chi refinement warrior. Jiang Tian had killed a lot of nascent soul cultivators since he was reborn. But in fact, nascent soul cultivators were extremely rare. On an ordinary planet, There might only be 2 or 3 nascent soul cultivators among hundreds of millions of people. They were the ancestral patriarchs of a race or sect. Hylon was a second-class planet in the ruins of immortality, but it wasn't a small planet with life in the universe. It was probably 10 times or even 100 times bigger than Earth. That was why there were several, dozens or even dozens of nascent soul cultivators living together. Nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to cultivate. In many cultivation sects, it was easy to form a golden core, but difficult to form a nascent soul. It meant that it was easy to form a golden core, but difficult to form a nascent soul. After all, a golden core was just the condensation and solidification of true essence. As long as there was enough spirit chi, the guidance of a master and a suitable chi refinement cultivation art, it would take 100 or even 100 years to form a golden core. As for whether they could release a Dharma form, that was another story. They were still powerful without it, and there were other ways to make up for it. But it was 10 times or 100 times more difficult to go one step further and reach the nascent soul level. It could be said that only 1 in 10,000 golden core cultivators could become a nascent soul cultivator. Once they reached the nascent soul level, they would be on another level. The nascent soul level was like a second life, and it was extremely difficult to destroy. At the golden core level, the body, golden core and divine soul were still separated. The body withstood the divine soul, the golden core released true essence, and the powerful divine soul controlled the true essence to form avatars or dharma forms to attack. But in a battle, golden core perfected cultivators could die if their body, golden core or divine soul were destroyed. As for the nascent soul, it was the combination of the physical body, the divine soul, and the golden core. It was much tougher than the golden core, and the divine soul was stored in the nascent soul. Its divine powers and dharma laws were extremely powerful, and its vitality was extremely strong. It was very difficult to kill it, even if its physical body was destroyed. It was also the foundation of becoming a soul formation cultivator. The problem was that the bodies and cores of the building foundation stage cultivators were extremely tensile. How could they be broken and melted so easily? What was the golden core? The word gold symbolized the immortality of Vajra. Since the golden core was named gold, it represented that it was the world's most perfect, sturdiest, and most immortal existence. Even the golden core of an ordinary immortal cultivator would decay after hundreds or even thousands of years. Some cultivators were unable to break through to the nascent soul stage even after a long time. In a moment of desperation, they would even use external forces such as dharma treasures of the earth, fire, wind, and thunder dharma treasures to forcefully destroy their nascent soul. Or they would use medicine to forcibly break their nascent soul. It was as if he was committing suicide, putting himself in a desperate situation and fighting to survive. This was the most difficult part of condensing a golden core nascent soul. Jiang Tian had carefully observed Long Xingnan. In fact, her golden core, divine soul, and body were already perfect, but she was still unable to condense her nascent soul. Jiang Tian quickly determined that her Tao heart was not tenacious enough, and her psyche was not strong enough. Or to put it simply, she was afraid of death, afraid of failure. And Jiang Tian's plan was to use external forces to torment Long Xingnan, stimulate her potential, and uplift her psyche. He would then take the opportunity to fuse the 3 forces into one. The process of shattering the golden core and condensing the nascent soul was extremely painful. It was like being ground by a stone mill, pulverizing one's body and bones. It required one's psyche to be extremely persistent and tenacious, as well as an indomitable will. If not, it was extremely easy to fail. And Long Xingnan, in the midst of battle, especially when she was crushed by the ruins emperor's henchmen, she was even killed once. Only then could her indomitable will be stimulated. At that moment, Feng Hu also realized this point. He could not help but feel exasperated as he snorted coldly. "Little lass, you sure are smart. You made me do all the work for you." "That's right. I've already thanked Senior." Long Xingnan chuckled as killing intent bloomed in her eyes. She said coldly, "Next I'll be fighting you to the death." "You are courting death?" Feng Hu laughed sinisterly. "You are about to transcend the nascent soul tribulations. That is when you are at your weakest." You might as well be in your nascent soul state. I can kill you with a single point of my finger. The nascent soul was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Apart from needing to fuse the three forces, one also needed to engrave the laws in one's soul. Laws were formed from the vast yuan qi produced by the heaven and earth. They were the limits of yuan qi and maintained the laws of a world. As for cultivators, they seized the creation of the heaven and earth, seizing a portion of the laws for their own use. How could the heaven and earth tolerate such a person? It would definitely be enraged and send down the nascent soul tribulations. As his voice faded, winds stirred and clouds churned. Bolts of lightning that resembled pythons flashed deep within the lead clouds. What kind of nascent soul is this last condensing? This lightning python far exceeds the typical nascent soul lightning tribulation. Feng Hu exclaimed inwardly as he made up his mind. He had to kill Long Xingnan tonight. If she were to attain her nascent soul in the future, even he would find it difficult to deal with her. Whoosh! He clenched the tiger-headed saber with both hands. His face was filled with killing intent. The nascent soul in the nascent soul, which was close to being a god, roared wildly. The power of laws surged and condensed on the blade. At this moment, everyone felt their hearts palpitate. It was as if their souls were being suppressed, and they were unable to use all sorts of magical powers and spells. Feng Hu has the bloodline of a fierce tiger. What he comprehended is the law of tiger might. It is an extremely rare spiritual law. Combined with the true weapon, the tiger-headed saber, he can strike out his opponent's soul and instantly crush it. Ghost Wolf's face turned solemn. He was very worried for Long Xingnan. At this moment, the thunder tribulation was only brewing and had yet to descend. However, the violent pressure had already arrived. Long Xingnan was like a bird whose wings had been broken. After falling for several thousand meters, she was finally able to stabilize her body. Feng Hu, shouldn't you consider who exactly condensed my shattered soul? You've lived in the ruins of immortality for thousands of years. Have you ever heard of such a miracle? Just as Feng Hu was about to make a move, Long Xingnan sat cross-legged in the void with her 5 fingers facing the sky. She was ready to transcend the tribulation. At this moment, Feng Hu noticed that the leisurely and evil sound of the flute had unknowingly sounded out once more. Could it be him? Feng Hu suddenly turned his head and looked at Jiang Tian in the flower boat. His eyes flashed with disbelief. In fact, just now he had used his divine sense to scan the flower boat and recognized Ghost Wolf. However, he did not find Kong Teichu, because Jiang Tian had suppressed his cultivation to an extremely low level. Even Feng Hu did not see any clues. Feng Hu, on the other hand, didn't believe that he would make a mistake with his vision and spiritual sense. Although he discovered Ghost Wolf's presence, he did not act rashly and alert the enemy. Instead, he sent a message to gather the divine generals of the White Tiger Guard. Ghost Wolf was very strong and could completely suppress him. If he made a move now, he might not be able to take advantage of him. His idea was to defeat them one by one. After he killed Long Xingnan, the reinforcements of the army would also arrive. Therefore, he simply pretended that he did not notice anything. However, he did not expect that Kong Teichu, who was feared by the 9 guards of the ruins of immortality, had already arrived in this world and was right in front of him. Fellow cultivator Feng Hu, you are a senior and a grand heavenly lord after all. You wouldn't go so far as to ambush and bully a kid when he's transcending the tribulation, would you? Jiang Tian rose casually and cupped his hands. He smiled and said, I am Kong Teichu, a cultivator from a remote galaxy. Nice to meet you, fellow cultivator. After hearing that, there was nothing but dead silence in the 10 square kilometers nearby. Rumble. The previously awe-inspiring crystal warships all retreated 10 kilometers away like a bunch of rabbits that were faced with a ferocious tiger. They landed randomly and moved non-stop until they eventually congregated into a defensive formation. On the cruise ship, Wuxia let out a cry of surprise. Her beautiful eyes widened as she looked at Jiang Tian. She was shocked, but at the same time, she felt a deep sense of admiration. She didn't expect that the devil, Jiang Taichu, whom she had been studying for so long, would be so close to her. Chapter 1524. Clatter, 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 clatter. Fatty Yen was so scared that his teeth were chattering. His face turned pale and his fat jiggled. He couldn't remember how many times he had cursed Kang Taechu just now. If he was Jiang Taichu and heard a mortal, especially an ugly fatty, scolding him like this, he definitely wouldn't let him go. He would beat him up and wipe out his entire family. Yenli was trembling like a quail and said with tears running down her face, "Brother, it's all your fault. Senior, just kill him. Don't hurt the innocent. Don't kill me. Why would I kill you? The ignorant are not guilty. You were just bewitched by the cultivators of this world." Jiang Tian smiled faintly and patted Fatty Yan's shoulder lightly. "It's really him." In the void, Feng Hu was so scared that his body trembled. The tiger head blade almost fell to the ground, and he almost fell from the sky. The tiger-patterned armor shook and rubbed against each other, making uneasy noises. Cold sweat poured down his forehead like a waterfall. He turned around and glared at the captain of his ship. He wanted to chop the captain into pieces. "Damn you! You ran away before I even got on the ship. At the very least, this ship could still withstand Jiang Taichu's attacks. At the most critical moment, it would be a life for Jiang Taichu." The captain noticed his gaze and realized that he had lost his composure. The main ship flew forward for 3 miles and then gradually slowed down. In the end, it stopped a few miles away from Mad Tiger, and didn't dare to go any further. "Haha, it's Mr. Kang Taechu. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you." Feng Hu let out a hollow laugh and his clothes were soaked with cold sweat. He cupped his fists and said respectfully, "I'm here to catch a thief. I didn't know she was a friend of Cultivator Taichu. Since she's a friend of Cultivator Taichu, she must be a loyal and righteous person. This is all a misunderstanding. Farewell." The Grand Elder of the Heavenly Wolf sect almost fell to the ground. He couldn't believe it. "Feng Hu, you're a divine general. Yet you're defeated without even a single move." However, he had no idea how terrifying Jiang Tian was in the eyes of the 9 guards. Back then, the Golden Crow Guards, the White Python Guards, and the Dark Crow Guards came together with the 6 heavenly sects of the Hylon world. Tens of thousands of Foundation Establishment cultivators, hundreds of Foundation Establishment cultivators, and more than 20 half-step soul formation cultivators to the lower realm to kill Jiang Tian. But in the end, the entire army was wiped out. Feng Hu was only a half-step soul formation cultivator, and he was not even as powerful as Shen Chang, the captain of the Golden Crow Guards. Of the dozens of crystal warships that he led, the largest one was merely the main ship, which was only equipped with a small god-destroying light cannon. The mothership of the Gold Crow, which was equipped with countless large god-destroying light cannons, had been blown up by Jiang Tian. It would be strange if Feng Hu wasn't afraid. Of course, as a divine general of the Ruins Emperor's 9 guards, he was loyal to the Ruins Emperor Palace, but loyalty did not mean that he would act rashly. Knowing that he was no match for the enemy, he still fought to the death. He thought that he was hot-blooded, but he ended up dying. That was something only a child would do. Whether it was by Muxue or Long Shengnan, it did not matter if he did not kill them today. They were just ants who could not change the overall situation. He could always wait for an opportunity to kill them. However, if he were to fight against Kang Taechu, he would probably not even last 10 seconds before being wiped out. Now, the strategy of the Ruins Emperor Palace, 100 Moon Academy, and Sky Palace was to guard the 2nd-level world and kill Kang Taechu in the 3rd-level world. Their target was not the Penglai world, but Kang Taechu. In other words, the Penglai world had already been abandoned. It did not matter if the world was lost or the lives of the cultivators and civilians there. Instead, it was treated as a bloody battlefield to slaughter Kang Taechu. In fact, the cultivators and mortals of this world were still unaware that due to the existence of the satellite-grade Qi drawing array, or rather, from the moment the array was established, the Ruins of Immortality was only interested in the world's spirit Qi and not them. Even if Kang Taechu occupied the world, as long as the Qi drawing array could not be destroyed, spirit Qi would be constantly extracted and injected into the Ruins of Immortality. Just as Feng Hu finished speaking, he was about to conjure a beam of light and fly away. "Hold on," he heard Jiang Tian say indifferently. "Taoist Feng Hu, why are you in such a hurry to leave? A chance encounter is not as good as an invitation. Meeting is fate. Please come to the brothel for a drink and talk about life and ideals." Talk about life and ideals? What the hell? Feng Hu's figure froze as he felt depressed. However, there was one thing he understood. Kong Teichu did not want him to leave, but if he were to fall into Kong Teichu's hands and become a hostage, would that be any better? At that moment, boom! A series of loud sounds came from the sky. Long Shengnan had already begun to transcend the tribulation. Violent lightning and thunder dragons smashed down. The wind whistled and the rain poured. Huge waves surged in the fallen leaf lake. Its power was extremely terrifying and intimidating. However, Long Shengnan was not afraid. She tempered her nascent soul with endless thunder and lightning and gradually imprinted a law into it. With the control of her divine soul, her cultivation level soared to an incredible height. I'm a bad-tempered person. If anyone doesn't want to drink with me, I'll want to kill him. Jiang Tian stepped in the air and came to Feng Hu. He patted the small gourd and a round table flew out. There were a few dishes and a pot of fiery wine on it. He smiled and said, "Come, come, thunder and lightning are falling from the sky. With such a storm, it's time to drink. Let's have a drink." He sat cross-legged in the void and poured wine on the ground. I brought the Thunderfire wine from Star World. It's more than 4 light years away, and the world passage is closed. You can't drink it anymore. It's the only one. Then I'll do as you say. Feng Hu's smile was uglier than crying. He could only sheath his saber and sit cross-legged on the other side. He took the cup and took a sip. "Since you've drunk my wine, you're my brother," Jiang Tian said with a smile. "Now I'll ask you something. You'll definitely tell me, right?" "What do you want to ask, fellow cultivator Tai Chu?" Feng Hu asked. "The next attack route of the ruins of immortality," Jiang Tian said with a smile. "It's inconvenient for me to reveal that. This is a capital offense. Since we're brothers, I'm sure fellow cultivator Tai Chu won't make things difficult for me." Feng Hu's face turned cold as he said seriously, "You beat up my people, but I won't argue with you. I'll even treat you to a drink. Since you've drunk my wine, you owe me. I'll make things difficult for you. Speak." Jiang Tian slowly put the wine cup on the table. His tone was calm, but his words were incomparably bandit and overbearing. "I'm sorry, but I can't." "Do you want me to kill you?" Fellow cultivator Tai Chu sure is domineering. "However, even if you kill me, I can't say a word. I still have descendants in the ruins of immortality. If I reveal anything, they will definitely suffer. If you kill me, I'll destroy my soul immediately." The corners of Feng Hu's eyes twitched as he pleaded seriously. His right hand slowly gripped the hilt of the tiger-headed saber. His expression was stern as he said loudly, "Activate all the God Slayers. Activate all God-destroying light cannons and target me. Once fellow cultivator Tai Chu attacks, attack immediately. Don't kill fellow cultivator Tai Chu. You can't kill him. Kill me." I don't know how strong the Ruins Emperor is, but the way he trains his lackeys is pretty good. They're loyal. Jiang Tian clapped his hands and praised. "We aren't royalty, nor are we the elites of 100 Moon Academy or Sky Palace. They are the ones who are truly loyal. They know even more secrets." Feng Hu smiled modestly. His smile was unyielding as though his muscles were being stretched. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead as his true weapon-grade protective Dharma artifacts and tiger-skinned armor emitted a faint glow. His dermic powers fluctuated slightly as he accumulated strength. The hilt of the saber in his hand creaked from his grip. "Prince Spring Rain, I shouldn't have killed you so easily. I should have searched your soul." Jiang Tian shook his head regretfully, causing the corners of Feng Hu's eyes to twitch even more intensely. Then he said calmly, "Brother Feng Hu, do you know that I'm best at searching souls? Your god-vanquishing cannons haven't even been activated, but I can search all the information in your soul." Fellow cultivator Tai Chu, you might not know this, but I'm known as the Tiger Deterrence General in the Ruins of Immortality. I'm best at attacking souls. Fellow cultivator Tai Chu, please be careful. Don't try to plunder my soul." Feng Hu's tiger-headed saber hummed as though it was about to shatter its scabbard and fly out. He retorted, "Then let's give it a try." Jiang Tian laughed. Suddenly, the golden lake on his forehead flashed as the soul-devouring divine sense instantly erupted. Chapter 1525. Release the god-killing light cannons and kill me. Feng Hu yelled as soon as Jiang Tian said that. The tiger-head-long blade shattered the scabbard, and the fragments of the scabbard shot out in all directions. The blade was like a knife cutting through water, emitting a frightening cold light, and with a thunderous momentum, it slashed towards Jiang Tian's soul-devourer divine sense that was attacking like a tentacle. Feng Hu had used all his power as a half-soul formation cultivator. Boundless spiritual pressure rolled out like a tidal wave and smashed down. It had already materialized, causing the lake water within a radius of 10 miles to ripple and the mountains to shake. The blade was intimidating and fierce. It was designed to suppress all kinds of soul energy and soul energy attacks, trying to cut off Jiang Tian's immortal will. At the same time, the god-killing light cannons on the dozens of crystal battleships were activated. Pillars of light as thick as buckets shot through the air toward Feng Hu. A single beam of light was enough to crush a nascent soul stage Heavenly Lord, or even a half-step divine transformation stage, Heavenly Lord, into dust along with his nascent soul. Feng Hu was resolute and didn't leave any way out. He would rather die than reveal the defense of the ruins of deity and the next step of the attack. He didn't want to live at all. The two of them were very close to each other. After a muffled sound, the soul devourer's immortal will and the tiger-headed blade clashed. Under the pressure of the soul devourer's immortal will, the tiger-headed blade with countless rune arrays was shattered inch by inch. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The sharp blades shot out in all directions for several miles, cutting many cracks in the void. In a blink, Feng Hu saw Jiang Tian push him gently with his right hand, as if he were opening the door of his own room. His divine sense saw that 100 meters behind him, a golden shield was holding up the sky. This protective shield was like a huge shield, with a radius of tens of meters. There were countless patterns of Dharma laws on it, like true gold. It was dazzling and unbelievably heavy. It seemed indestructible and unshakable. The light beams that could penetrate mountains and melt treasure metals didn't even leave the tiniest mark. The successive shocks made Feng Hu's face pale with disbelief. His tiger-headed blade was an indestructible Dharma treasure at the true artifact level, and was good at soul energy attacks. Soul energy wasn't as strong as a physical body and was much weaker. And yet, Jiang Tian's soul devourer's immortal will broke the tiger-headed blade. The god-killing light cannons couldn't penetrate the true essence shield formed by Jiang Tian. He couldn't believe it. That. Kong Teichu, don't even think about it. He wanted to explode his nascent soul. Unfortunately, he didn't even have the time to activate his soul consciousness before Jiang Tian's black soul-devouring soul consciousness invaded his brain like a black lightning. How is that possible? This was the last thought in his mind. His entire body sank into eternal darkness and chaos, and his spirit was completely covered and enveloped by the soul devourer. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Seeing that Feng Hu had been captured, the crystal warships retreated like rabbits facing a tiger. The Grand Elder of the Heavenly Wolf sect and the other cultivators were scared out of their wits. They trembled and didn't dare to come again. However, Ghost Wolf held his air-piercing saber and charged forward silently. A few seconds later, violent explosions and the sound of huge objects crashing to the ground came from 15 kilometers away. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Everyone saw large balls of fire explode in the sky, and red mushroom clouds rise, like blooming flowers of fire. Ghost Wolf had already returned to the boat leisurely. Wuxia was so scared that her face turned pale. She asked, "Senior, this is?" "Fortunately, I didn't fail my mission and wiped them out," Ghost Wolf said coldly and expressionlessly. Wuxia shuddered in fear. He was only Kong Teichu's follower, and yet he was already so powerful. Kong Teichu's strength was unimaginable. Jiang Tian soon found all the information in Feng Hu's mind. He couldn't help but reveal a worried look. The reaction speed and mobilization ability of the Ruins Emperor's descendants are truly terrifying. Now many level 2 worlds, including Hailan, have set up countless magnificent defense lines. They're like torrents of iron chains. They've also built countless powerful fortresses that almost cover the entire world. There are half-soul formation grand cultivators, or even soul formation grand cultivators in those fortresses. Besides, thousands of shocking cultivators have either entered the Prunglai world through the portal, or crossed the sky on space warships to attack the Dragon Gate, the Biming world and the Ingzhou world. There are even soul formation grand cultivators. They're trying to kill me and wipe out my base. Jiang Tian looked extremely solemn at that moment. It was the first time since his rebirth that he felt that the situation was tricky and not easy to deal with. There was no other reason. He hadn't completed the 9 transformations of the divine plate and broken his core to form the nascent soul. After all, he was still trying to form the nascent soul. With his current strength, killing half-soul formation grand cultivators was no problem, but it would be extremely difficult for him to deal with normal soul formation grand cultivators. He had to use the Heaven-Severing Sword. However, the Heaven-Severing Sword was a deity artifact. Every time he used it, it would cost him a lot of energy. He could deal with 1 soul formation grand cultivator, but what if a few or a dozen soul formation grand cultivators attacked at the same time? What if a top soul formation grand cultivator attacked? The chances of him dying would be extremely high. Besides, the Ruins Emperor had stopped his life for 1,000 years and hadn't attacked for a few thousand years. Nobody knew exactly how powerful he was. If he reached the Void Return or the Dao Reunion level, Jiang Tian wouldn't be able to withstand one of his attacks. Cultivation and strength. I can't care about those details anymore. The most important thing now is to improve my cultivation and strength at all costs. Jiang Tian slowly opened his eyes and 2 beams of light flashed in them. His face was as cold as iron, and he looked extremely determined. Jiang Tian stood up and kicked the table away. He then raised his hand and shattered Feng Hu's body, leaving only the nascent soul that had lost its divine soul to be devoured by the Taotai restoration. He glanced at Long Shengnan and said, "Long Shengnan, hurry up and get ready. I'm going to help you go through the tribulation quickly, but the pain you'll have to endure will be 10 times or 100 times more than before. The chances of you dying are also extremely high. Senior, I'm not afraid." Long Shengnan shouted as she was bathed in lightning. Her body, nascent soul, and divine soul cracked and reformed again and again. Okay. Jiang Tian's expression was calm. He patted the sky-devouring demonic gourd at his waist, and the time array disc flew 10,000 feet into the sky above the tribulation clouds. Under the acceleration of the time array disc. Boom. Boom. The nascent soul tribulation lightning descended at a speed 10 times, or 100 times faster than before. Countless lightning pythons gathered, almost forming rivers of lightning and flames that smashed down. The lightning was extremely bright and as thick as a river. It illuminated the sky and completely enveloped Long Shengnan. It illuminated a radius of 10 miles and shook everything within 100 miles. Oh my God! How can there be such a tribulation transcendence in this world? This is probably even more terrifying than the soul formation tribulation transcendence. Ghost Wolf considered himself a ruthless person, but he had never seen someone as ruthless as Jiang Tian. He actually accelerated Long Shengnan's tribulation lightning 10 times, or 100 times faster. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead like a waterfall. Needless to say, the other cultivators were so scared that their faces were pale, and they were trembling. These tribulation lightning were too terrifying. They thought that if they touched a trace of lightning, they would be turned into ashes. They saw it. Long Shengnan was flying up and down like a withered leaf in a long river of thunder and lightning. She screamed in pain, and her glowing body split and merged even faster, as if she was dying over and over again, and was reborn over and over again. Finally, after 20 minutes, the thick clouds dissipated. The lightning became smaller and disappeared. The rain and wind also stopped. The starry night sky that looked like inlaid gems was revealed. The milky moonlight poured down, and the world returned to calmness. Only Long Shengnan was left floating in the air. Her beautiful eyes were slightly closed, as if she was comprehending something. The law of the real dragon. Suddenly she opened her eyes. In the void, 2 dragon-shaped lightning flashed and rushed out. In the nascent soul, a miniature nascent soul roared. 9 dragons of laws rushed out and surrounded Long Shengnan, who was wearing dazzling armor, golden boots, and a dragon crown. They roared and bared their fangs and brandished their claws, making her look incomparably mighty, as if a peerless war goddess had descended. Congratulations, Fairy Shengnan, for stepping into the nascent soul realm and becoming a heavenly lord. Congratulations, Senior Taichu, for getting a powerful helper. Seeing her so mighty and powerful, Bai Muxue and the other cultivators and mortals on the flower boat were so scared that they kept quiet and kowtowed together. Not bad, I didn't teach you in vain. You have comprehended the law of the real dragon. You are worthy of me. Jiang Tian showed a gratified look. He put his hands behind his back and nodded slightly. Master, please accept my kowtow. I will never forget your kindness. Long Shengnan kowtowed in the void, tears falling like rain. Kong Teichu, where is Fenghu? Suddenly, an explosive shout that was like a thunderclap resounded, and it shook everyone to the point their heads buzzed. Swish, swish, swish. Streaks of dazzling escape light streaked across the sky from all directions like rainbows. They traversed 100 miles in the blink of an eye. Their speed was unimaginably fast. The light suddenly stopped. It turned out to be 8 divine generals who were half a step away from the soul formation level, surrounding Jiang Tian in the middle. Those divine generals had different temperaments. Some were as dark as smoke, some were as fierce as ancient beasts, some were as sharp as a peerless heavenly sword. Some were as heavy as mountains and some were as bright as the sun and the stars. Even though their temperaments were completely different, all of them were extremely powerful without exception. Their nascent souls were extremely powerful, and they were not far away from becoming gods. Swords, halberds, flames, ice, miraculous trees, ferocious birds, ferocious beasts, poisonous mist. Laws of all shapes and colors coiled around his body, and some even had more than one type of law, causing him to seem extraordinarily mighty and terrifying to the extreme. He drank my wine and didn't speak properly, so I killed him. Jiang Tian was not afraid. He sneered mockingly and said, "You're right. Everyone from the White Tiger Guards, you're quite impressive. Do you know that the White Tiger on Earth refers to a woman with a special body? A female cultivator with the White Tiger bloodline. What's so strange about that?" Many divine generals didn't know why Jiang Tian mentioned that, but they understood the first sentence Jiang Tian said. Their comrade Feng who had been killed. They couldn't help but fly into a rage and curse. "How dare you, you traitor! You killed my 9 divine generals. Do you think the guards of the Ruins Emperor's palace are easy to bully? You're too arrogant. Today, I'll definitely grind your body to dust and extract your divine soul. Only then can I vent the hatred in my heart." Although they were cursing fiercely, they didn't immediately take action, as if they were waiting for an important figure to arrive. As expected, moments later, a middle-aged man with wide sleeves and a wide belt walked over. He was dressed in the robes of the 9 Dragons Emperor, and had 12 crowns on his head. He looked extremely dignified and dignified. "Kong Teichu, were you the one who killed my son Chen Yu?" He bellowed fiercely as lightning shot out from his eyes. The 17th imperial grandson of the Ruins Emperor, the one who was once the previous Ruins Emperor, Emperor Hanshi. The instant he saw the person, Ghost Wolf could not help but turn pale with fright. He subconsciously took a few steps back as his pupils constricted to the size of needle tips. Chapter 1526. He was a soul formation mighty figure. The term Ruins Emperor had 2 meanings. First, it referred to the Ruins Emperor himself, who was also known as the Ancestor Emperor. Secondly, it referred to the Ruins Emperor lineage he founded, and the Ruins Emperor dynasty he established. In fact, ever since the Ruins Emperor slaughtered the ancient paragons of the Immortal Lands, and suppressed the nomads of the Immortal Lands, he had entered a state of intermittent blood condensation and lifespan stoppage. Otherwise, even at the soul formation realm, he would not have been able to withstand the corrosion of time. As for his Ruins Emperor dynasty, after tens of thousands of years of reproduction, it had already given birth to 18 generations of descendants. Every generation had thousands of direct descendants. As the Ruins Emperor's lineage cultivated in top cultivation techniques, they had extremely long lifespans. It resulted in the grand occasion of 18 generations discussing politics together. The Ruins Emperor had 18 generations of descendants, but not everyone could obtain the Ruins Emperor's recognition and grace to ascend to the position of Ruins Emperor. Those who could rise to the top had to have extraordinary talent and a powerful cultivation level. They had to reach the soul formation realm. Furthermore, they had to be adept in both civil and military matters. They had to have a majestic bearing that could swallow the world, as well as the talent to help the people. Furthermore, they had to contribute greatly to the ruins of immortality. Only then could they stand out from the other royal descendants and become the ruins emperor. It could be said that they were one in a million, as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. There were even cases where no one from the royal family ascended to the throne. In the ruins emperor dynasty, there were a total of 10 emperors among the countless princes and descendants in the past 10,000 years. And Emperor Hanshi was one of them. As he had reached the soul formation realm, he was also known as Divine Emperor Hanshi. Ghost Wolf, you still recognize this emperor. Back then, if I had not forgiven you for your assassination, you would have perished centuries ago. You would have long been reduced to a pile of bones. Emperor Hanshi stood in midair, dressed in a dragon robe and a flat imperial crown. He exuded a regal aura as he exuded a dignified aura. He looked to be in his 40s. He only had 2 or 3 wrinkles, but his crystalline eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life and profoundness. They were filled with the vicissitudes of time, and contained infinite wisdom and truth. He simply stood there without using any dermic powers or divine powers. Yet he floated in midair as though he was meant to be standing there. It was natural. As his words faded, his aura tore through the skies. His eyes darted around as lightning flashed in them as he looked at Ghost Wolf. He only glanced over. With a clang, the Ghost Wolf seemed to have been hit in the chest by a 1,000-kilogram hammer. Blood spurted out of its mouth as it was blown away miserably. The endless reinforcing rune arrays were destroyed, and a huge hole was smashed on the bottom of the boat. Instantly, it sank into the lake and disappeared. Long Shengnan was shocked. Her heart was pounding, and her face was pale. Senior Ghost Wolf was most proficient in assassination and escape techniques. The void-piercing blade could break through space and instantly disappear from this world. However, he couldn't even avoid the might of a single glance from the world-shaking Divine Emperor. However, she did not retreat. Instead, her aura rose steadily as she released 9 true dragons of law, intending to fight alongside Jiang Tian. On the flower boat, with the hole created by the Ghost Wolf as the center, the array glyphs on the inner wall of the cabin quickly dimmed. The light of the treasure was extinguished, and huge cracks as thick as an arm crazily spread out like a spider web, covering the entire flower boat in an instant. Everyone run. Bai Mushue's heart turned cold. With a wave of her sleeves, she rolled up Fatty Yen and the rest of the mortals in the cabin and flew up into the sky. The other cultivators were also shocked. Like a group of startled grasshoppers and birds, they quickly flew away and left. As soon as they left, the Dharma power contained in the collapsed array glyphs in the flower boat exploded uncontrollably. Flames shot up into the sky, and the billowing airwaves set off monstrous waves. The flower boat was instantly torn apart and turned into ashes. It's too terrifying. Senior Ghost Wolf was killed with just a glance, and the aftermath tore apart the flower boat that could withstand the attack of a golden core cultivator. Many cultivators of Penglai stood on the shore of the Fallen Leaves Lake and exclaimed. Their hearts fell into the abyss, and their legs turned to jelly. They couldn't wait to kneel down and surrender. This is a real god. As for Fatty Yen and his brothers and the rest of the mortals, they had already prostrated themselves on the ground in fear. They couldn't wait to turn into ostriches and stick their heads into the soil. Such terrifying strength. Even Bai Mushue's pretty face was solemn. The strength of the Penglai world was really too far away from the ruins of immortality. She had no doubt that the world-shaking Divine Emperor alone could flatten this world and exterminate all life. No one could stop him. At this time, Long Shengnan also felt cold. She had told Sword Master Outyin of the Heaven Baron sect to close all the teleportation arrays from the ruins of immortality and Hylon to this world. How did they get in? Even the fastest interstellar ship couldn't be this fast, right? Although the world-shaking Divine Emperor wasn't a top soul formation cultivator and couldn't be compared to the headmaster of the academy, the sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace or the Star Lord of Sky Palace, he was one of the 10 divine emperors in the history of the ruins Emperor Palace after all. He had entered the soul formation level for hundreds of years, and was far more powerful than Shen Chong and the other guards that Jiang Tian had met before. I felt the space fluctuation from the Northern Ocean world to this world, So I came to Maple City from the Heaven Baron sect, and have been searching for 2 hours. Now, you've killed my white tiger guards and caused a storm of blood. You deserve to die to atone for your sins of killing my son, the spring rain, and my golden crows. The world-shaking Divine Emperor's face was as cold as iron, and his eyes were full of viciousness. He waved his hand and 2 men flew out of his sleeve like flies. They turned into the size of a normal person. They were Swordmaster Outyen and Zhongzi Zhangqingyang of the Heaven Baron sect. When the 2 of them saw Jiang Tian and Long Shengnan, they shouted desperately, "Senior Ancestor, please leave quickly." The world-shaking Divine Emperor used a Taoist artifact secret treasure to break the space and go through the teleportation arrays. He also opened the other teleportation arrays. The Heaven Baron sect has been destroyed. Before they could finish, the Divine Emperor Hanshi grabbed their nascent souls and golden cores and put them into his storage bag, before he said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a chance to escape. According to the law, they should be killed immediately and their families should be exterminated. I didn't kill them because I was afraid that you, Kong Teichu, would run away because you're an abandoned person of the small planet, and I would have to chase after you. Thief, if you dare to run away, you'll all die here." At this time, Ghost Wolf crawled out of the alternate space, covered in blood. However, he didn't dare to come close. On a mountain 100 miles away, he stealthily appeared and disappeared from time to time. He used his soul consciousness to send a message, "Senior, let's retreat. We can't defeat him. He's a soul formation cultivator." Outyen. Zhangqingyang. Exterminate the sect. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and a cold glitter flashed. Even though Sword Master Outyen and Zhangqingyang were originally people of the Ruins of Immortality, they had quickly joined his side, and even gave him the top-secret information about the Pearl Tree. They were captured, their sects were exterminated and their families were killed because of him. How could Jiang Tian not be angry? Ghost Wolf, Long Shengnan by Wuxia, you 3 used to be people of the Ruins of Immortality, but you became friends with bandits and joined the abandoned people of the Ruins of Immortality. I'll take you back to the Ruins of Immortality and kill you on the deity-slaying platform in front of everyone as a warning to others. The world-shaking Divine Emperor reached out his hand. 3 surges of boundless true essence suddenly burst forth. The first one pressed down on the mountain 100 miles away. The sea of clouds suddenly caved in, revealing the shape of a giant palm. Ghost Wolf immediately noticed it. He kept stabbing with his air-piercing sword and used the power of laws. But how could he resist the attack of a soul formation cultivator? A soul formation cultivator had reached the edge of the Grand Tao, and was the infinite sublimation of the laws. For example, the laws were like a straw rope and the Grand Tao was like a carbon steel rope. Even if there was only a trace of the latter, it was still a qualitative difference. How could he resist it? Boom. The clouds were broken and cracks appeared on the air-piercing sword. A giant palm with traces of the Grand Tao wrapped around it grabbed Ghost Wolf. The second one appeared by the lake, and took by Wuxia away as easily as a dragon eagle catching a Chinese alligator. The third one also crushed the 9 true dragons formed by Long Shengnan, and took her behind him. He cast a spell and shackles containing the fragments of the Grand Tao immediately sealed the 3 of them. Unless he activated it or died, Ghost Wolf and Long Shengnan wouldn't be able to break free at all. Then the world-shaking Divine Emperor looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and said coldly, "It's rare to have a genius like you in the desolate and remote solar system. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have provoked the royal family of the Ruins of Immortality. You shouldn't have meddled in the worlds of the South Gate 2 stars. You can never imagine the terrifying power of the real royal family of the Ruins of Immortality. You can only look up to them and never reach them in your life. Your ancestor, the virtuous sage, was defeated by the ancestral emperor of the Ruins of Immortality. Today, you will also be defeated by me." When he spoke, he was very calm, as if a deity had come to enforce the law and sentence Jiang Tian to death. Chapter 1527. Ghost Wolf, Long Shengnan and Bai Wuxia were imprisoned by the shackles of the Great Way. They were all wailing in their hearts, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The pressure that Divine Emperor Hanshi brought to them was unprecedented. It wasn't because they were timid and weak, but because Divine Emperor Hanshi was too powerful. This was a glorious Divine Emperor. His natural talent was extraordinary, and his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. He had once shaken a world and suppressed the boundlessly vast territory of the ruins of immortality. He stood out from the countless imperial clan disciples of his generation, and ascended to the position of divine emperor. That's terrifying. He's a real overlord of the royal family. Ghost Wolf even felt that even if the leaders of the 9 troops all attacked, they wouldn't be a match for him, and would be killed in an instant. At the moment, Divine Emperor Hanshi hadn't moved yet. The essence chi in a 100-mile radius froze. The nascent soul in Divine Emperor Hanshi's body turned into a divine treasure, which was like an immortal palace. The nascent soul had evolved into a god, as if it contained the power of a star that could destroy the world. Once he attacked, the area within a 1,000-mile radius would be razed to the ground. He was like a god that had descended and killed everything. Long Shengnan also turned pale. Bai Mushua's heart was already cold as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. He was a soul formation grand cultivator, the previous emperor of the ruins of immortality. He was a giant in the royal family who had always been outstanding and shocked an era. He was invincible even in the ruins of immortality. The ordinary chancellor of the 100 Moon Academy, the monster on the God of War list, and the leaders of the 9 troops were all inferior to him. He was invincible in the ruins of immortality, except for the headmaster, the sword god and Lord Tai Bai Mushue. Although Jiang Tian was powerful, he was still a nascent soul cultivator, and a golden core cultivator after all. He still controlled Dharma laws. No matter how strong he was, it would still be difficult for him to fight against a soul formation cultivator. Senior. When Long Shengnan murmured and wanted to persuade Jiang Tian to immediately escape 10,000 miles away to preserve his strength, Jiang Tian had already stepped into the sky and said, "Divine Emperor Hanshi, this place is too narrow. Godly Emperor Hanshi, this place is too narrow. Let's enter the boundless starry sky and fight to our heart's content." His face was calm. Lightning sparkled in his eyes. His god body bloomed with dazzling light that made him look like a god of war. "Haha, Kong Teichu, you're treating this place as your territory and the living beings as your people. You're afraid that they'll die if they're destroyed. You're really a lunatic." Hanshi Divine Emperor's face was full of mockery, his eyes full of contempt. He then turned into an incomparably dazzling bolt of lightning and shot straight into the sky, saying, "Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll go fight in the outer realms. Outside this world, in outer space, I will use all my power to kill you to the point of despair. I will extract your soul and refine your bones. Only then can I wash away the pain of losing my son. Humph. This world originally belonged to the celestial land. How can I fall into the hands of you rascals? I'm the descendant of a sage from the deity ground. Today, I'll show you how I'm going to dominate the universe." Jiang Tian grunted and his face was as cold as steel. The 10-foot divine will behind him spun and carried him into the sky. Now besides the wood elemental, earth elemental, and water elemental golden cores, the other laws on the 9 transformations of the disk had already been extremely condensed, and they'd formed the true seal of the laws. It was like 9 rivers of stars were revolving and emanating a myriad of rays of light, causing it to seem even more resplendent and gorgeous. His body was surrounded by golden flames, and he tore the dimension apart like a golden shooting star. He shot straight from the ground to the sky, shaking the world. 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers. Jiang Tian didn't stop. In front of everyone's shocked eyes, Jiang Tian directly went out of the atmosphere and tore open the boundary with the Kunpeng laws, arriving in outer space. He stood with his hands behind his back. The 10-foot divine will behind him spun slowly and shone brightly like the sun in the sky. In front of him was the divine King Hanshi. Behind him was the vast universe and the asteroid belt that surrounded the planet Penglai. There were even the remains of giant battleships and Dharma artifacts floating in the air. They were the remains of the ancient battle. This was a good space battlefield. A battle in outer space? It hasn't happened in Penglai for many years. Bai Mushue and the other cultivators of Penglai were also shocked. Their immortal will couldn't detect Jiang Tian and the divine King Hanshi anymore. They were too far away. It's rare even in the Hylon world. Even nascent soul heavenly lords don't want to go to outer space. Long Shengnan was also shocked and looked serious. Logically speaking, golden core cultivators should be able to traverse the void with their physical bodies and travel in outer space. Because their bodies were extremely tough, they weren't afraid of the negative air pressure in the vacuum. Their golden cores could also provide endless blood chi and nourishment, so they weren't afraid of losing the support of the essence chi of heaven and earth. And yet, even golden core cultivators and nascent soul heavenly lords wouldn't want to go to outer space without the help of Dharma artifacts such as universe armors and interstellar ships. That place was full of mysterious and unknown forces, such as magnetic storms, dimensional fragments, super radiation particles, and even the remains of battleships, Dharma treasures and waves of Dharma laws. Even a golden core perfected cultivator, or a nascent soul cultivator could be strangled. I can't see anything. I wonder who's stronger, Kong Teichu or the Divine King Hanshi? After God Emperor Hanshi left, Fatty Yen felt a bit more relaxed. He didn't lie there anymore and instead stood up gloomily. Apparently Senior Taichu is stronger. Ghost Wolf snorted and looked at the White Tiger Divine Generals with a sneer. Brothers, let me go so that I can plead for you guys in front of Senior Taichu. Otherwise you'll die? In the distance, a divine general slapped him in the face and sneered, "You're too arrogant." Jiang Taichu, it's already amazing that he killed some divine generals. He's no match for the Divine King Hanshi. Ghost Wolf, you idiot. Why have you become so stupid after following an ant for a few days? Mo Yang, if it weren't for my chains, you would have been dead. Ghost Wolf said. Mo Yang used to be his subordinate, the Dark Crow Guards, but he wasn't as powerful as him. He used to bow to him, but now he thought he was a pushover. Ghost Wolf, you've cast your pearls before swine. How dare you threaten us divine generals? You're a prisoner now. How dare you be so arrogant? You're asking for it. Slap, slap, slap. The other divine generals all struck out and slapped him a few times. After dozens of slaps, Ghost Wolf was sent flying. Blood spurted from his nose, and his teeth were about to fall out. Ghost Wolf was suppressed by the chains. He could easily kill him, but without the order of the Divine King Hanshi, they didn't dare to kill him. However, humiliating Ghost Wolf was unavoidable. Ghost Wolf, you're not convinced. This god will let you see clearly how the Jiang Taichu you worship as a god will die miserably. Mo Yang sneered in a mocking manner. He waved his right hand and released a few detection Dharma artifacts. Those Dharma artifacts looked like eyeballs and had lines of pupil patterns. Under his command, all of the probing magical artifacts shot into outer space like shooting stars, covering hundreds of miles in an instant. He took out a golden ball with his right hand. The golden ball floated in the air. He pointed in the air and a huge golden screen appeared. The screen was huge. It was dozens of meters wide, and was divided into several squares. It was the image of the battlefield outside the city where Jiang Tian and the Divine King Hanshi were. It was shown from several angles and was very vivid. In the desolate outer space, there were huge, cold, black meteorites, rusty ancient chariot wreckage, and huge skeletons floating. They gave off an ancient and lonely aura. In this desolate battlefield, Jiang Tian and the Divine King Hanshi faced each other coldly. They didn't talk much. The Divine King Hanshi's eyes were filled with hatred for Jiang Tian. He had made up his mind to kill him. Only by killing Jiang Tian could he wash away the hatred in his heart for the death of Prince Spring Rain and the 9 guards. Only by killing Jiang Tian could he restore the supreme dignity of the Ruins Emperor's bloodline and become an undefeatable legend. Jiang Tian had to be killed too. Only by removing their coefficients could he close the World Hole teleportation array and prevent them from using the World Hole to teleport here. This would buy him some time. Only by killing the Divine King Hanshi could he save Ghost Wolf, Long Shengnan, Proud Heaven Swordmaster and the rest. He could find the Pearl Tree and push his cultivation to another level. This battle was even related to the safety of the solar system. This was an unavoidable battle. Both sides were filled with killing intent. They were determined to kill each other. Their eyes were cold and their faces were as cold as steel. Chapter 1528. At the same time, Jiang Tian and Divine King Hanshi hadn't done anything yet. They only released their energy slowly, and it interfered with the boundary and atmosphere below. All of a sudden, the spatial barrier trembled. Layers of clouds rolled, lightning flashed, rain poured down, and violent winds howled, causing all sorts of phenomena at the celestial phenomenon level. Even if it happened in the ruins of immortality, it would still attract the attention of hundreds of millions of cultivators. Why is the boundary shaking so violently? Are interstellar spaceships forcing their way in? On top of a mountain peak that was tens of thousands of meters tall, it was verdant and lush with lush vegetation. Spiritual chi lingered like mist. This was a large sect in this world called the Sunset Beauty sect. In the extreme west, several purple-haired female cultivators walked out of a palace hall and looked at the sky in horror. What should we do? Activate the array. All disciples, put on your protective Dharma artifacts. Prepare for battle. They were panicking. This was an extremely rare situation. They had only heard of it happening in other worlds, but it had never happened in this world. Even though they were all golden core cultivators, they couldn't withstand the energy. Even the boundary was about to be torn apart. Don't panic. It should be a battle between the soul formation overlords of the ruins of deity and Kong Te-Chu. The sect master walked out. She was an old woman with a kind face. Her old eyes were filled with endless vicissitudes and wisdom. What? Kong Te-Chu? A soul formation grand cultivator. No wonder the energy is so strong. They should be outside the boundary, at least 10,000 miles away. We can't withstand it. A group of disciples kept talking, and their eyes were full of shock. They had all heard of Kong Te-Chu's fierce name, but they had never thought that he would arrive so soon. If I'm not mistaken, Divine King Hanshi is here. Kong Te-Chu is really making a big fuss. The old woman looked at the sky with her deep eyes. She couldn't calm down and there were waves in her heart. She had heard some news from a secret channel, and it was finally confirmed. This battle was earth-shattering. It would undoubtedly cause a huge wave and completely change the history of this world. Kong Te-Chu is really here? He's facing Divine King Hanshi on the battlefield outside the ruins of deity. Oh God! It's a world-shaking battle that's rarely seen since ancient times. The news gradually spread. There was no wall that didn't have a crack. This kind of battle was too shocking and couldn't be hidden. Many great sects released their surveillance artifacts to observe the battle from afar. Their hearts were on tenterhooks. This battle would determine the ownership of the Prunglai world. It was closely related to them and no one could ignore it. In the meantime, on Fallen Leaf Lake, the news of the Heavenly Wolf sect, Holy Pearl Palace, and many other independent cultivators being wiped out by Jiang Tian, and the others had also spread. The bandit Kong Te-Chu has repeatedly stirred up bloody storms. Damn it. My son, Han Tianyang, had the potential to be an emperor, but he fell at the hands of Kong Te-Chu. I can't accept it, I hate it. Humph, Kong Te-Chu is indeed very strong. Unfortunately, he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He actually dared to provoke a god king. I wonder how miserable his death will be. This is a frog at the bottom of a well. He doesn't know the vastness of the starry sky and the vastness of the universe. He thinks that just because he can occupy the peak of a few remote worlds, he has the qualifications to challenge the supreme giants. The ignorant are fearless. He has to die. He has to die. Because of the bloody battle at Fallen Leaf Lake, many people hated Jiang Tian. They couldn't wait for Jiang Tian to immediately die at the hands of God King Hanshi to vent their hatred. Even some unrelated people didn't think highly of Jiang Tian. The power of the ruins of immortality was deeply rooted in their hearts. Even the guests from the second-level worlds were like gods in their eyes. Not to mention that the God King Hanshi had already produced gods and reached the soul formation stage. He used to be an emperor. This was a completely unequal war. Suddenly the world quieted down. All the cultivators, mortals, and even monsters felt extremely frightened. They almost lay on the ground, trembling physically and mentally, as if they had reached the end of their lives. Two peerless heavenly powers came from the sky. This majesty was peerless and dignified, making people feel suffocated. Even golden core and nascent soul cultivators couldn't resist it. Their bodies stiffened, and they wanted to kneel down. Only Ghost Wolf, Long Shengnan, and Mo Yang from the upper world could stay in the sky. On the fallen leaf lake side, the cultivators and mortals went into the nearby caves and looked at the light screen in the sky from afar. Senior, will Senior Taichu win? Bai Mushua's face turned pale. She once heard from her master that as long as a cultivator entered the foundation establishment stage, every step after that was a natural chasm. Every time a cultivator crossed a natural chasm, their strength wouldn't increase by 1 or 2 times, but by 10 or 20 times. Before that, she had never seen a nascent soul or soul formation cultivator. Today was really an eye-opener. At this time, even though Jiang Tian and God King Hanshi were in the outer realm, the majesty they displayed had already affected the vast territory of the entire Penglai world. They had the power to move mountains, fill seas, and pick stars and moons. This was the power of gods. Senior Taichu's cultivation level is far lower than his, but his divine powers are vast and the grade of his laws is extremely high, comparable to the great Tao. He has been undefeated in 10,000 battles before, so he will definitely be able to defeat his opponents today. Ghost Wolf glared at Mo Yang and the others. He thought that as long as Senior Taichu killed God King Hanshi, he would definitely avenge the humiliation he had suffered just now and kill all of them. Mo Yang and the others ignored the hidden meaning in Ghost Wolf's words. They just stared at the golden light screen without blinking. Although they had praised God King Hanshi before, they couldn't help but feel a bit worried at this time. In the Outer Realm battlefield, Jiang Tian and God King Hanshi were 10 miles away from each other. They released their power and clashed together like a stormy sea. Boom! After the collision, the dimensions shook and turned into 2 giant vortexes, crazily colliding and tearing at each other. At this moment, the gigantic world membrane that was like a dome had caved in with a radius of 10 miles. The space runes that had been suppressed were activated. They flickered fiercely and intertwined with the twisted starlight and moonlight, forming a magnificent picture. However, at this moment, no one could ignore this great battle. Whether it was the cultivators of Maple City on Fallen Leaf Lake that was closest to it, or the cultivators of the Sunset Beauty sect that were thousands of kilometers away, they all felt the tremendous pressure. They could not withstand it at all, so they all retreated into their dwellings or released protective artifacts to forcefully hold on. And in the Outer Realm battlefield, the world-shaking battle had finally begun. The 2 top overlords finally fought. Jiang Tian slowly reached his right hand in the air, and with a whoosh, an ancient lotus-shaped Dharma artifact bloomed in his hand. Strands of primal chaos aura swirled around the green lotus leaves and golden lotus flowers. The golden lotus of the Sea of Bitterness? It was cultivated by the royal family of the ruins of immortality in the lost Xianming Grotto heaven. In my eyes, it's just a withered leaf. You want to kill me with it? You're making a fool of yourself. God King Hanshi laughed with arrogance in his eyes. He waved his sleeve. A golden thunder mace with flashing golden light, and surrounded by lightning was taken out. The lightning showed the images of phoenixes, dragons, cheelants, cheongqis, and other fierce beasts. They waved their claws and were extraordinarily powerful. They were all intelligent, and contained the power of the great Tao. Golden Thunder Mace. It was a top Tao artifact of the ruins Emperor's Palace, and contained a great Tao fragment. God King Hanshi had comprehended the 2 great Tao of lightning and metal. It was easy to use and was 10 times or 100 times more powerful than ordinary Tao artifacts. Withered leaf. Try it. Jiang Tian snorted. The divine disk behind him spun wildly, and the wood elemental and metal elemental laws poured into the green lotus. The lotus leaves and lotuses immediately rumbled and boiled like a sea. They turned into wooden spikes, rolling logs, swords, spears, and halberds that attacked God King Hanshi. These attacks and weapons were all formed from the laws of nature. They were like rain, clouds, and rain, smashing down one after another. Everywhere they passed, the void within 100 miles shook and meteorites shattered and turned into ashes. The remains of the primordial ship were torn apart, and countless corpses of the ancient warriors were turned into ashes. Even their armor was shattered. Oh. You refined an ornamental plant into a quasi-Tao artifact that contains 2 types of 5 elemental laws. Moreover, the laws are perfect. You can still use them even after leaving the stellar world. It's of an extremely high level. God King Hanshi was startled. Ever since he had appeared, his face had been calm, or contemptuous. But now it finally revealed a look of surprise. The array Jiang Tian triggered by waving his hand was something he couldn't do when he was a golden core cultivator, or even a nascent soul cultivator. God King Hanshi had carefully read all the information about Jiang Tian collected by the Ruins Emperor's Palace and the 100 Moon Academy. He certainly knew that Jiang Tian was powerful. But when he really faced Jiang Tian, he realized that he had underestimated Jiang Tian. The power unleashed by Jiang Tian right now was not something that a nascent soul cultivator from a desolate, remote planet could unleash. It wasn't even something a nascent soul cultivator from the ruins of deity could do, which made him feel like he was facing a super overlord from another planet. He didn't mean the solar system, but the legendary Big Dipper planet region, or the even more mysterious central galaxy. What a shame. No matter how strong you are, you're only a golden core cultivator and a nascent soul cultivator, while I'm a soul formation grand cultivator. Suppressing you is like crushing eggs. God King Hanshi snickered. If Jiang Tian was given 100 years to break through to the soul formation level, or even the half-soul formation level, God King Hanshi knew that he would be no match for him. But it was a pity. Kong Teichu was still young, and he was already facing him. The difference between their levels was too great, and he was asking for death. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.